How long does it sit like this to make it the screen grab?
It just needs to be like just.
I thought I was dead yesterday.
You look.
Jeez.
It needs to be random faces like that. Oh, I love that.
Holy crap! Did I die? My God, I died. Nobody told me. Secret mission. Can we please start pronouncing it Kabul so I can stop thinking of Michael Cobble every time we mention?
Kabul. In the baking heat.
That sounded like it was Jordan Peterson's wife. But, like, also Canadian.
I swear I've got 10 emails from this woman talking about Jim Honoré and Lee Charles.
Yeah. I'm off it. From Katrina Whitaker.
I don't think I have anyone for restaurant roundup today. So,
That's fine.
yeah. Thought I had Burger Smith, but I think that's the next Wednesday.
Nope.
Nope.
Also no. Shit.
Needs to- Come on, there we go. All right. That's fine. Renee Smith, good morning.
Updates from Ashley.
No.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't see any traffic coming in. Like, I had no traffic coming in. That makes sense now. About 20-ish minutes. Drive out from Prairieville. 10. Yeah. You have a complete collision live.
Oh, yeah.
Alrighty.
.606 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Good morning, everybody. Brian here with you. Chuck P. producing this morning. Jake in training. Taylor has a day off. That's quite the cast of characters.
Isn't it, though?
I mean, it's like a closing credits in the opening.
Yeah, you got
I guess that would make it an opening credits.
Yes, that would be correct.
Oh, what up, everybody? We got a busy show for you today. Attorney Franz Borghardt is going to be in for Legally Served half an hour from right now. I got a couple of different things to talk about with Franz. Earlier this week, guy got sent. Was it Kenneth Gleason sentenced to life in prison? Want to talk about that, but also want to talk about. Well, he can't talk about the Donald Steele case, but what he can talk about is if every day you're defending people who are arrested by cops, what's it like to then turn around and defend cops? Couple of other things to talk about as well with Franz Borghardt in Legally Served. Then in the 7 o'clock hour, we're going to do something that I don't think we've done since I've started this show. We're going to open up the phone lines. Get your takes ready right now, 499-1073. I mean, I can give you the phone number now, but we're not taking calls for another hour and 10 minutes. Here's why, though.
Okay.
The big news yesterday, you got to be vaccinated to get into Tiger Stadium. Are you going to forego LSU football games because of your vaccination stance? I mean, we've got plenty of news to cover within that segment as well, but I'd be willing to set a lot of that aside just to hear your takes. 7:35, Congressman Garret Graves going to be on the hotline for D.C. Current, and boy, is it going to be a hotline. My job today, trigger Garrett in every way possible. What went down yesterday?
I was going to say, you're going to insult his baking?
No. Oh, God, no. I still have to tell the truth, man.
Okay, all right, just checking.
No. By the way, for those that don't know, our congressman here in the 6th District, phenomenal in the kitchen. Almost as phenomenal as he is in a committee hearing. Yesterday, Biden and colleagues used congressional budget tricks to defund Louisiana flood protection and raise gasoline prices. Not to mention pass $3.5 trillion or shift $3.5 trillion forward that everybody was trying to avoid. I shouldn't say everybody because it got moved forward. Nonetheless, though, when Congressman Graves comes on, it's going to be like, poke, go. Poke, go. In the 8 o'clock hour, have you heard about Louisiana Swamp Watch yet? This is actually going to dial right back to the 7:35 segment. James Lee heads up Louisiana Swamp Watch, going to join us at 8:15. And then let's talk about the fallout in Afghanistan. Paul Viollis, security expert Paul Viollis, author of Safeguarding America, Paul Viollis, He used to be a correspondent with CBS, but he's been on the show a number of times talking about security threats, and just navigating our way through the world as it is today. Paul's going to join us at 8:40 to talk about the fallout from bailing on Afghanistan and the way it's being handled. All that's coming your way throughout the show this morning, plus we'll have top stories and trending, plus we'll have the outside in, plus, of course, Chuck P. will have this day in history. And I got about a minute and a half to lead off things here. Every day with COVID-19 has kind of devolved into a whole, I'm so over your take, I'm done with it. For example, I'm done with, and I say I'm done with, but I continue to find answers to questions. People who have every rabbit hole to jump through before taking the vaccine, just say you don't want it. It's fine. Just say you don't want it. Stop being the person who says, well, I would take it, but ... Eventually, you have to look in the mirror and say, there is a list of questions that will never, ever, ever be answered because I will continually add to the back end of that list. And this week is very exemplary of that. The number of people who said, well, it's not FDA approved. Okay, so now it's FDA approved. Yeah, but we don't know long-term effects. Yeah, I know. There's literally no way to know long-term effects until you've been, what's the word? Long-term. Just say you don't want it. It's fine. Just be honest with yourself and others. We'll get there through truth. So that part has me salty. Then, can we please be honest about COVID deaths in Louisiana? The Louisiana Department of Health's coronavirus website, which has a number of things on their initial dashboard and then other dashboards or other sources of information you can get to at the bottom. One of those is a breakdown of a number of different statistics on the deaths. Additional data on COVID-19 deaths in Louisiana. Last updated 8/11/2001. So unless this has changed dramatically in the last 2 weeks, we know a number of things. One of those things is the ethnic breakdown or the racial breakdown of who has died. 61% white, 37.5% black. Other than that, 0.81% Asian. A lot of that has to do with the demographics of Louisiana. So we have that. We've got the age, median age of those who have died from the beginning, 75. Now we understand that's trending downward, but it does still remain 75. 53% male, 46% female in the death column. Underlying conditions is where I have pause here. 63% of those who have died have had hypertension, 37% diabetes, 28.7% cardiac disease, 26.2% neurological problems, 22% obesity, 16% congestive heart failure, another 21% with chronic kidney disease. Now, you might be adding these numbers up in your head and thinking, well, that's a lot more than 100%. Yeah, a lot of folks have had more than one underlying condition. 4.4% asthma, 9.5% had cancer, 15% had pulmonary issues, 16% had congestive heart failure. I'm just curious, with all these underlying conditions, how many people with zero comorbidities have been killed by COVID in Louisiana? Well, as of the last update, which was 8/11, 4.7%. 4.7%. Now, does that any way reduce the severity of this disease? No. But does it change perspective on the hyperbole when we're told that everyone's going to die tomorrow? I'll bet. We got a lot of stuff that's not COVID related to talk about today, and we will get to all of it. We're going to talk sports in our next segment. Right now, though, we're due up for a break. Before we take that break, though, I've got to tell you about the folks over at Complete Collision Center. 2 locations, one on Plank Road in Zachary, one on Perkins, right just east of Bluebonnet in Baton Rouge. Certifications out the wazoo. Doug believes in knowledge and continuing education, so he makes sure his team is certified by most major car manufacturers: Ford, Honda, Acura, Nissan, Infiniti, Hyundai, Kia, Fiat, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, and oh, by the way, the iCar Gold Class certification as well, which puts them in the top 15% of body shops nationwide. They know how to find the damage. They know how to find the hidden damage. They know the latest techniques to make sure you and your family get back on the road safely. Learn more about all of it at CompleteCollision.com, CompleteCollision.com. Don't let who you choose to repair your vehicle be your second accident. Check out CompleteCollision.com. Quick break, talking sports next. What up, Franz?
How's it going, guys?
Going well, how are you?
Charles, what's going on? Franz, how are you, sir? Life's good, man.
North Face?
Yeah.
Still the always cold?
Yeah.
Same. I can't shake it.
Although let me tell you, man, I was off the reservation on the diet yesterday. I had some cookies, some homemade cookies. I had some Rita's ice cream or whatever.
Oh, the Italian ice place?
Oh, dude.
Gelato.
It was one of those where I got home and I was like hating myself but loving myself at the same time. It was kind of one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was actually quite stupid because I got to take a flight today, so I'm not. It's going to be an uncomfortable flight. That's all I'm going to say. Hey, it's listening to Charles while I listen to Charles.
Hey. Tiffany says she's not a fan of the title screen over the screen grab.
And I'll comment is you'll probably change that after the show. Because you go back and edit that picture. I don't know how to do a screen grab on this thing.
Do you know how to do a screen grab on the back end? Like once it's over with? I don't.
There's a way.
I think would
I don't know nothing about YouTubes.
pause the video.
It had
Shot you want screen grab.
Yeah,
Well, Paul O'Neill takes a picture of Moscona every day.
Yeah,
but there's
I
a
don't
way
know how to do that
when you upload the video on the back end.
Yeah.
Your video's already uploaded, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you go in and edit it, and it will give you some options, but you can also do what you just said.
Okay. Poor Lake Chuck might get another storm next week. Yeah, I was seeing that. The disturbance number 2.
Yeah.
No recording Doers this week. Friday's out. Skip it a week. Is that okay? You okay with that?
I'm good. I'm good. Who's your is Rosher, your AE? Your account exec? Your salesperson?
What's his name? Who occasionally sends me.
Dave Rosher?
Yeah. You can drop him an email.
I got him.
Okay.
16, 17, 18.
Yeah. Galen says, Brian, I'd like you for you to invite the Baton Rouge doctor that discovered the COVID taste test that indicates how severe your case will be. Yeah, I know that guy. He's a friend of a friend, actually, and we'll do. We'll do. Moving right along, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. So it looks like the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the ACC have formed a pathetic alliance. We'll dive into that later on in the week. Want to know a lot more about what their commitments are going to be to each other with pairing up to make sure they're scheduling against each other, pairing up to make sure they're not poaching each other's conferences, pairing up to make sure the SEC doesn't take over the world. Right now, though, let's talk about one of those SEC teams, specifically LSU. There was a lack of cohesiveness to last year's team. Senior offensive tackle Austin Deculus says this year, bit of a different feeling coming around.
You just see everybody like gelling together, like you just feel it in the air, and like that feeling you just can't really describe. It's just like it's crazy. It's really something like I personally like have grown to love more and more like about this team that we see every day. But the like the camaraderie and stuff is just. If you're here for just one day, maybe 30 minutes to an hour, you'll be able to just, yep, I know what he's talking about.
Keeping it with the offensive line, Ed Ingram says there's a lot more focus this year and a lot better leadership as well.
It's not as much joking around and playing around in meetings and on doing walkthroughs and stuff like it was last year. Last season, we had a lot of jokesters, a lot of younger guys just playing around, and a lot of older guys not stepping up saying anything. But this year, we have a lot of guys, including myself, to step up and say stuff.
Now, if you want to see this focused team that's gelling together and you could feel it in the air, you're going to need to be vaccinated to do so. We're going to talk about that in our next segment. Right now, here's the Fox Business Report.
So, I don't go to a lot of sporting events. Shocker. Go to basketball games.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a deterrent for you in any way, shape, or form that you have to either evidence vaccination or...
7:15, I'm taking phone calls for the first time in the show. I'm opening up the phone lines to ask that exact question.
I look at it as I'm going to have some good chance for some tickets this year.
Well, that's kind of my knee-jerk was I've gotten the vaccine, so I'm just evidencing something I've already done. And then number two is it thins the herd of people that were going to go to the game. It's
changes the herd. Doesn't thin the herd. It changes the herd. There's a maximum capacity either way.
okay, fair enough,
But
fair
there's a
enough.
waiting list. So and you have to balance this. If you say, damn it, I'm not getting the vaccine, I'll just wait it out. Okay, that's fine, but you have to give up your tickets, which means you give up your priority as well,
That was
which
the other
means the
question.
next person in line gets to step up, or at least that's the way the Saints are handling it.
So wait, you're like you could have decades of like
Cuts 4, 5, and 6 in a
you could
second.
have decades of prioritization that you're giving up as a result of not. Wow.
Yeah.
But you could theoretically buy the tickets and then just resell them.
Oh, absolutely.
That was the route to go.
Yeah, secondary market's the way to go, for sure. But now what the risk you run there is you're going to buy your tickets anyway just to make sure you can get into the Bama game, the Florida game, those that roll through. Well, yeah, Florida's at home. Bama is there this year. Anyway, you're getting into the big games. What you're not getting into is, do you really want to be in 115-degree heat on 9/11 when McNeese comes to town? It's not a 9/11 reference. It just happens to be the date that the game falls on. Yeah, Saturday noon at 2, Mooyah, be there.
Finally got it working. It wasn't like it Monday it didn't play at all.
I might have a milkshake. No, I won't. I shouldn't. No milkshakes until goal weight. Getting there.
How much more to lose?
9 pounds.
So I celebrated squeezing into a size smaller in pants, which was my goal all along.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at my goal weight. I celebrated with 2 scoops of Rita's ice cream last
There
night.
you go.
There's something messed up about that.
Oh, that's perfect.
So I am going to a conference in one of my favorite towns tonight, Vegas, and it's a food trip for me. I mean, it's a work trip, but it's also so I'm going to Bizarre Meats tonight. I'm breaking the meat fast. I don't know if you've ever been there.
Bizarre Meats?
Before. It's called Bizarre.
Isn't that how COVID started? Thank you. Gonna have some bat,
No, I'm
some
gonna have
pangolin.
lamb, and some suckling pig.
There's a place over there. I think it's called the Cereal Box. It's a place where it's just like it's every cereal on the planet,
I love that idea.
and you can make like milkshakes and stuff with them. And then there's like a challenge where you pick like 5 different cereals and like in this giant bowl. If you finish this bowl, you get like it's nuts. It's on TikTok. I follow them on TikTok.
You know what cereal I'd like to have out again? Crunchy Stars. Do you remember Crunchy Stars? The Swedish chef from the Muppets had a cereal.
I bet it's there because they have everything. I bet they have it.
I want me some Crunchy Stars. That was terrible, too. But it was the most fun cereal box to read ever.
I saw
Did you
at
used to read the
Walmart
box?
the other day? Frankenberry, blueberry, and Count Chocula.
Ooh.
Halloween's coming.
Opening up the phone lines, man. I like it.
Nobody's going to call. I mean, if it was driving. but
You never know.
yeah. .624, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Attorney Franz Borghardt's going to be up a little more than 10 minutes from right now for a segment we do every Wednesday. We call it Legally Served, and there's no shortage of topics this week to talk with Franz about. Diving back into where we left off, was telling you about LSU and the vaccine policy and whether or not it will have effects on the crowd in Tiger Stadium. In fact, we're going to be taking your calls on this at 7:15. So if you are unvaccinated, is a vaccine mandate something that would keep you outside of Tiger Stadium? Now, to be clear, it's not a mandate. You're not forced to go to Tiger Stadium in any way, shape, or form. LSU football, as much as we love it, is not a right. But you're impeding my right to a pursuit of happiness. Well, so does me not being allowed to drive while I'm drunk because I'm endangering others. I mean, I realize the hyperbolic nature of that statement, but nonetheless, we've had no shortage of hyperbole around here every single day. Like when we're told that all of our children are going to die because of COVID. But nonetheless, there is a certain amount of danger for others when we're spreading a virus in the middle of a pandemic. Now, back to the point here. Now that the FDA has given full approval of the Pfizer COVID vaccine, as promised, LSU President William Tate says students will be required to be vaccinated or undergo regular COVID testing. Students have until September 10th to submit proof of their first vaccination and October 15th for their second vaccination. Tate says he believes in those vaccines.
This is a research university. That vaccine has been researched very well, and we believe it's the best thing to keep them safe and keep our doors open for the rest of the semester.
So LSU has until September 10th to show their first shot or proof of their first shot, which gives you till what, the first week of October to be fully vaccinated. Southern University isn't requiring full vaccination until spring of next year, which I find interesting. Like, why would it take longer? I don't know. Also, Southern University, you only need a mask to get into A.W. Mumford. LSU, the vaccination standard is out there. Only the third school in the NCAA to say, this is where we're going. Others will follow, but as of right now, LSU's only the third one to do it. Tate says, and you're going to hear more about this in the news at the bottom of the hour, Tate says if a student chooses not to be vaccinated for COVID, they will have to undergo regular testing.
If students don't take the vaccination, which they have that right in Louisiana, they will be part of our testing protocol.
Because they have that right in Louisiana. And this is going to bring up a bigger conversation of what is a right and what is a privilege. Like, if it's something you have a right to do, then you can't be forced to do something to impede that right. But if it's something that is a privilege, you can have other things tacked on in order to attain that privilege. So is college a right or is college a privilege? Yesterday it was announced Tiger fans, like we said, will have to show proof of vaccination or negative PCR COVID test 72 hours prior to kickoff to enter Tiger Stadium. Tate says he hopes the vaccination requirement for students and fans will cause a run on vaccinations.
My hope is we get so many people vaccinated that we can't keep up. That's what we want to have happen. And so, but there is access to vaccination opportunity right here at LSU and here in Baton Rouge.
Got to work on the messaging. No, you do want to keep up, Dr. Tate. You don't want to.
Yeah, that's not the way you want to put that at all.
Terrible phrasing, sir. Oh, man. We want to have so many people vaccinated that we lose track and people can just tell us whatever and we have to believe them. That's what we want.
Yeah, you're good. Come on through. Come on.
Here's the
You're
thing
good.
about this, though. When LaToya Kant said that in New Orleans you had to be vaccinated to get in anywhere, it includes the Superdome, which means Saints games. So I formulated this take then, but it applies to Tiger Stadium as well. She can have a mandate on whatever she wants within her city. But if you want to affect change in surrounding parishes, something that's a draw is going to do it. Take a look at those who go to Saints games. How many of them are from Orleans Parish? How many are from St. Charles, St. Bernard, Jefferson, St. Tammany Parish? How many are from Terrebonne? How many come in from Baton Rouge or Ascension or Assumption or St. James or St. John? If you want to get into Saints games, you're going to get vaccinated. Same thing for LSU games. And it will have a much deeper effect than just those that are in Baton Rouge. It'll be the surrounding areas. Now, it's not an apples-to-apples comparison because we're talking about a university president versus a city's mayor. It's not an apples-to-apples comparison, but you will see a trickle-down effect of those who make their way to Tiger Stadium from wherever within the state, who didn't have a stance one way or the other, didn't really care one way or the other, but this is the motivating factor. If Tiger football is a motivating factor for you, you'd be done with it. Boom. Otherwise, you're getting a PCR test 8 weeks out of the fall. Who wants to do that? All right, it's time to talk legal matters, legal issues, legally served. Attorney Franz Borghardt's going to be coming up right after news. Before we get you to news, though, have you downloaded the all-new Talk 107.3 mobile app presented by Gregory Ricks and Associates? You can listen live. You can listen on demand. You can even set an alarm to wake up with Legally Served with Franz Borghardt every Wednesday. It's the Talk 107.3 mobile app presented by Gregory Ricks and Associates. CBS News coming your way right now, then local news, traffic, and weather. Good morning, Christy. Tiffy says, what's Chuck doing up this early? He's not up.
Wait, what? Where am I?
Uh-huh. Open the phone lines. Yep, it is Bizarro World. Get yourself in. Get in on it. 499-1073. 45 minutes from now. Franz, how big of a Saturday Night Live fan are you? Like early 90s Saturday Night Live. You remember SNL, like when Farley and Sandler were first on?
Yeah.
There was a woman on the cast then named Siobhan Fallon. Remember that name?
Yeah. I'm trying to picture her face, but
Okay, remember the movie Men in Black?
yeah.
The bug gets inside. Was it Vincent D'Onofrio? Was that who played that character?
Uh-huh.
Anyway, he goes back in looking for sugar.
Yeah, that's
And
the wife.
The wife is
Yeah,
Siobhan
okay.
Fallon.
Yeah, now I got a face. I got
Yeah.
a face.
So she did a movie. It's coming out this weekend. It's about and this is not a comedy at all. She's done nothing but a lot of comedy leading up till now. But this movie is more of a thriller. She plays the mother of a kid who was hazed to death.
Okay.
And I mean, like, they go into graphic detail about the hazing and just drink until he's passed out and then like duct
Is it
taping him
based
to a
on-
chair.
is it
It's
based-
not.
Okay.
But that's where I'm going to take it. I got Siobhan Fallon coming on the show tomorrow morning.
How about that?
I know. When I saw this, I'm like, there are applications here in Baton Rouge. It's set in like New York somewhere, but
Who made this coffee this morning?
depends on which pot.
It's this coffee.
I made a pot earlier.
It's-
I made a pot and then I made 2 pots.
It's
actually.
kind of like the marriage between very strong and weak. It's like that middle ground. It's not too. It's good.
Breakfast blend.
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
See, we used to use a cafe special, and I would have to make 2 pots off the same bag of coffee because the first one would come out so tannic. Not satanic. So tannic.
So tannic.
Tannic.
Yeah.
Use your words.
Yeah. The second one, though, would come out a lot smoother, but just as strong when we switched over to breakfast blend. Tannic's not the right word. Yeah, it just,
That's fair.
it had bite to it. A little bit too much for this
I wish-
time of the morning.
I wish we could get some other flavors.
I'm surprised you don't have a Keurig up in this place.
There is on 3.
Third floor.
Second
sales-
floor gets nothing.
Sales gets what sales wants. Second floor, we get to go to for the second floor, you know what we get? A trip up and down the stairs to the first floor.
Yeah. Third floor gets a water cooler, Keurig. You get nothing.
I mean, there's about $200 worth of liquor to my left, but I'm still going to whine. Hey, WHINA. Boy, I am awful this morning with the puns. I got to get off that. So,
quite a photo. Just never gets
You're that thin now.
Yeah.
You know, the
really.
irony is I really am that
That,
now.
like, when that picture was taken,
That's accurate now.
it was funny at the time. Now it's just a bad suit.
It's just a bad-
I bought this thing for you.
For you.
Best Joe Pesci movie.
Oh, I'll go deep cut on this one. Jimmy Hollywood.
Good Lord.
Worst Joe Pesci movie.
Also Jimmy Hollywood.
Also Jimmy Hollywood.
Best Joe Pesci movie,
He's known
Casino.
for-
Yeah, I was gonna go.
It-
Yeah, it's gonna
Goodfellas
be-
or Casino?
Those are the two he's known for the best. Right.
Casino, Goodfellas, My Cousin Vinny, Home Alone 2.
But I mean, Pesci
do what?
plays pretty much the same role.
Worst Joe Pesci movie, The Super.
His role in Lethal
Super,
Weapon
wow.
was a little.
Yeah. The Super.
Leo gets.
He was a slumlord that was sentenced to live in his own building.
Oh yes, okay. Now I remember that.
I mean, did you even utilize your 5 free videos a week?
I did, but I mean, it was all on what new releases we got in that week, or video games.
I've never been a video game guy. I don't know why.
My PlayStation 4 now is just it's collecting dust. I haven't played it.
Byron says death is not the only bad consequence of infection. Lots of data coming out about organ damage. Well, I don't even own an organ, much less a piano. But that being said, death isn't the only bad consequence of COVID, but I think we can all agree it's the worst.
It's basically what I was using my Xbox for. Now my roommate has it in his room, and that's what he's using it for. Yeah.
You want to start with Kenneth Gleason, or you want to start talking cops?
Yeah, I mean, I rarely play games on it until I got a smart TV, and I was like, all right, well, I don't need this anymore.
I was asked.
I'm not a first.
I was
person guy.
asked, one,
So I'm
how
not
is
good
it
at
that I
those
represent cops doing what I do for a living?
You represent anyone accused of a crime.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Then last night I was asked if, since
I remember-
insurgents of Afghanistan by the Taliban, would I
I remember
represent
coming
a
home
jihadist?
from gigs and just
Over there or over here?
Over here.
I don't think you'd have the opportunity to.
Right. That was kind of the.
my roommate and
There
8 other
generally isn't
people
anything left
with
to
5 TVs.
represent.
Yeah, like back in the day, like when Halo first came
I'm a mercenary, man. I'm not.
Would you represent a suicide bomber? Not if they're good at what they do.
Right.
My take my TV out, so I'm like, just like
They
what
lack.
am I supposed to
If
do?
I'm representing them, they lack conviction.
Oh, was that a pun?
No.
Okay. My clients lack conviction. See, I'm all about the puns today, man. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's time for Legally Served. Time to welcome in attorney Franz Borghardt. Franz, what's happening, brother?
Oh, just living in y'all's world, man. Good to see Chuck P in the house.
I don't know about that, man.
How are
See
you doing,
Wait,
Brian?
good not to see me?
No. I mean, it being our world. It's
Oh,
his
yeah.
world,
Oh, it's
man.
definitely his world, for
Did
sure.
you follow along? There were pictures pre and post race last weekend. You survived your first 5K, sir.
Oh, wow. Congrats, man.
Wasn't pretty. I wasn't. Here's the most important thing. I wasn't last. It's race in the loosest sense of the word race.
Yeah.
This was a Get Your Rear in Gear colon cancer fundraiser race. It was actually really laid back. It was hot.
Yeah.
It was really hot.
Yeah, that
And
that
so-
run is usually in March.
So I'm looking at signing up for the the zoo run, it's a little bit shorter one. It's like a 2-miler, and then
And much easier to run, by the way.
yeah.
'Cause you walk a lot less during that because it's easier to pick benchmarks to okay, I'll run to the giraffes, now I'll run to the monkeys,
Right.
now I'll run to the birds.
And then turkey trot, and then the marathon. What's wrong with the turkey trot?
Nothing at all.
I love the turkey trot.
I know.
I see me as a turkey.
That's okay.
B, you made it sound like something's wrong with the turkey trot with that sigh.
No. He's addicted now.
Oh
That's-
yeah,
you
he's
see
gonna be
where we're
running
going with
he's
this?
gonna be running everything. Yeah.
All right, so you've gotten in on the 5Ks and I have not, but I have a feeling our next competition is going to be involving the 5K at the Louisiana Marathon.
I see us doing, instead of a weight loss competition, a Festivus feats of strength, games.
I'll go feats of strength all day long.
You're definitely stronger than I am right now.
Okay, but I like that right now caveat. Pick a day, bad boy. Let's go. But running wise, I don't know that I have any particular advantage here. So that's not about strength.
I'm not built
man.
for speed here. I'm not
Nor
built for
am I.
speed.
I'm not built with knees.
None of us in this room are.
That is,
except Jake.
I know we're supposed to talk law, but I'll tell you the only thing I've observed with the weight loss is my knees don't hurt, but there's definitely inflammation in the knees. Not from walking. Now, I do a lot of walking, but running.
Walking.
Yeah, walking.
Walking.
All right. You want to talk law?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm
let's
here
talk
for.
law. You know what you can't run from? You can't run from the law. How's
right.
that segue? Good?
I mean, you can. It just never plays out well.
All right. Kenneth Gleason's sentenced to life in prison. It's about right?
I mean, he got convicted of first-degree murder, right? So, I mean, that's a life sentence.
Okay, but were they?
It was kind of a foregone conclusion.
They weren't seeking the death penalty, though.
Yeah.
Is there room to go under that? I mean, okay.
No, it's a mandatory life sentence.
How cut and dry was this from start to finish?
It was a tough. Let me say this: overwhelming evidence is the term. Like our guys out in Livingston with the cupcakes, I couldn't resist. Overwhelming evidence makes for a difficult defense.
Yes.
Unless you can present a piece of evidence that makes the overwhelming evidence be called into question.
Like what?
Something that calls into doubt the perspective or the imaging of the evidence. So, like, for example, if you have somebody that's accused of doing something like an assault, a sexual assault or something, and then you show that it was consensual, then you can have a whole bunch of acts that seem on its face lewd, lascivious, sexual in nature. But if you can show just one evidence of consent, then all of a sudden it calls into question everything. Gleason, I think, was monikered as a serial killer at one point, correct?
Yes, and with racial motivation as well, which
is, I mean,
okay. Let's talk about that though. Does that change the perspective from jump because it somehow makes him infinitely worse?
So serial killer generally implies multiple dead human beings,
Yes.
like pattern behavior, something they do serially.
Right.
That's a word.
Meticulously planned out.
Yeah.
Once you're done with one, you're moving on to the next type of
The
thing.
problem with serial killers, as someone who has represented a serial killer, is unless you're Dexter, there's nothing romantic about the idea of a serial killer. They're perceived as monsters.
Right.
And so you're defending someone not just accused of a bad act, you're defending someone from the jump that is a quote-unquote monster, which may be factually true.
Okay.
But again, they're not on trial for being a monster. They're being on trial for the act.
Right.
So
The way it's written in The Advocate, convicted Baton Rouge serial killer Kenneth Gleason, who was accused of fatally shooting 2 black men and firing into the home of a black family over a 4-day span in 2017, was handed a mandatory life prison term Monday by a judge who said the appropriate sentence would have been the death penalty. Can you have a more weighted, a heavier,
So I'm not going to make commentary on this particular judge other than to say that was an unnecessary comment. That was just an unnecessary comment, and that was political
grandstanding? Yeah.
Yeah. But that being said, because I mean, you're really making a comment on the district attorney. You're making commentary on the district attorney.
Well, the district attorney has had to fight back on the fact that he doesn't pursue death penalty cases on a regular basis.
Right.
I mean,
so
he takes everyone at every individual case on its own merits, but at the end of the day, he's limited in resources.
Right.
We're limited in what we're going to pay for this thing because you have unlimited appeals. Well, is it unlimited or
So let's go down the death penalty rabbit hole for a second.
That's where we're headed.
Number one, the district attorney talks to the family. I've had this conversation as a prosecutor with the family members, the victims. Sometimes they don't want the death penalty.
That's fair.
So if the victims don't want the death penalty, and they would be content with a life sentence, and by the way, to a lot of people, a life sentence in Angola is a pretty potent punishment. Some people view the death penalty as too easy, too light of a sentence.
Right.
Because you're dead.
Yeah.
Having to rot in Angola, one might argue that that's a significant penalty.
Yeah, the argument is when you're sentenced to death, once you've died, your sentence is over. So your sentence is served in a much shorter period of time. I don't necessarily buy that argument, but I hear it loud and clear.
Yeah.
I can't get away from the racial component of this, though.
Okay.
Does it factor into a jury's decision or a jury's motivation to want to put somebody away?
I think in 2021, yes. I think if you were trying this case 10, 15 years ago, I don't know that Baton Rouge was as galvanized on that front. I don't know if the community or society at whole is as, we have a culture now, and let me be clear, racism is a terrible thing.
Of course.
But the herd did not necessarily feel the same way about racism 10, 15 years ago as they do now.
But is it fair to say that it was a lot more neutral then?
I think
not to say it was more racist then, but you're less triggered by the verbiage.
Less triggering, whatever the word is for that. Yes, but look, this guy's going to go away for life.
Yeah,
that's no.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a light sentence to be sure.
Here's the thing, and this is the last thing I'm going to say about the racial issue. And we got to take a break, check your money now, and check traffic. But the last thing I'm going to say about the racial issue is, when you say someone's a murderer, I don't need an and. I don't need he's a murderer and a racist. He's a murderer. That's bad enough at that point to remove him from the rest of our society.
You've heard me say real fast. You've heard me say before. Hate crimes sound aggressive and good prosecution, but at the end of the day, it's harder for a prosecutor to get a hate crime conviction than the underlying charge that the hate crime is based on. Hate crime murder is still murder,
right?
And
murder, you have to prove action.
Yeah.
Hate crime, you have to prove motivation.
Right, and by the way, you're doing a life sentence either way.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's like work less, work smarter, not harder.
All right, we got to take a quick break. We're going to check your money now. We're going to check traffic. Legally Served with Franz Borghardt continues next.
Hey, Facebook.
I got us up for 47. I hope that's okay.
Hey, YouTube. Who's Jack Cluso? Yes. Jack is probably Kev.
I haven't seen him in a long time.
I don't understand the kill those Cocoa Puffs. I don't understand that. Is that a racist term by Jack? Was that racism by Jack? I don't know.
No, I don't know. There's a line that can't be crossed. When it's crossed, that's when I delete.
You got to be special to get deleted. No, not really special.
No.
Just an a-hole. Mm-hmm. So I'm flying out of Baton Rouge today.
Oh.
Which means if my flight is at 4, I'm going to roll up there about, 3.
I'd give you
3:15.
Yeah.
3:30.
Yeah.
30 minutes. I love flying out of Baton Rouge.
Oh, me too.
I haven't flown out of New Orleans, the new New Orleans airport
Me
yet.
neither. Well, I haven't flown anywhere since the pandemic began.
Well, that's true, too. Do I need my vaccination card? Do I need proof of vax? Should I bring it?
Well, so, yeah, you need to...
Do I need to do it if I re-put LA's
No.
on my phone?
It'll ask, and then it'll just automatically suck your
Vaccination.
information onto that app.
Okay.
You don't need it. You do have to wear a mask for the flight, but we don't have a vaccination mandate here.
That's where I'm wearing my Catholic High alumni mask.
Bro.
Because I was talking to Catholic High guys earlier this week about being a lawyer, about being a criminal defense attorney. A mercenary, if you will.
That's what we need, more Catholic High
Lawyers.
defense attorneys. No shortage of Catholic High attorneys. So, in fact, come to think of it, you don't need a vaccination to fly out of New Orleans either. because the New Orleans International Airport, the Louis Armstrong is actually in Jefferson Parish. So,
Jack clarified it's serial killer Cocoa Puffs.
I like it. I like it.
I'll give him a +1 on that one.
Yeah.
Good job, Jack. Good job. That wasn't a racist. It wasn't a racist comment by Jack.
Yeah. So if you
good eating. Good eating. I went to Roca last night. I watched the boy eat some pizza. It was tough. I gotta say, I know it's blasphemy. I'm not crazy about Neapolitan style pizza. Yeah, it's not bad. It's just not like, give me some city slice with a whole bunch of meat on top of it. Give me some Mr. Gaddy's.
oh jeez.
Oh, dude, I miss that Gaddy's buffet. I miss the Gaddy's buffet.
My favorite pizza's in Arnoldville.
Okay, tell me more.
It's a Viollis brewing, Cajun sauce. Pizza's amazing.
My favorite pizza's on Metairie Road. Mark Twain's. Yes. Chris and I. Oh. Do what? Bizarros. Jesus. Like Fat Boys? Like Fat Boys with the slices? Go to Fat Boys. Yeah.
Size matters to everybody.
I mean,
Wait, are we still talking about pizza?
yep.
Okay.
So,
Dude, by the way, kudos to James's new school picture.
oh my goodness, you kidding me? It's awesome.
Did they let him retake it last year?
Year before, and yes.
Yeah. Okay.
You'll come back dry on you.
Bump. Actually, let me come back dry for the spot, and then spot bump back in. Legally Served with Franz Borghardt going to be continuing in 60 seconds from right now. I do have to tell you about the folks over at the Baton Rouge Mattress Outlet. By the way, once again, shout out to Israel, Talk 107.3 listener who went in to the Florida Boulevard location. I believe it was the Florida Boulevard location, 4065 Florida Boulevard. Got himself a king-size mattress, got himself an adjustable base, and got himself a heck of a deal because he mentioned he heard about it right here on Talk 107.3 FM. Yes, you will get free delivery if you mention you heard about it right here. 4065 Florida Boulevard is the mid-city location, corner of Jefferson and Hoosier 2, if you're out in that corner of the parish. And Labor Day deals are on their way. I can tell you right now, Labor Day financing is already here, and that is 12 months interest-free no matter what you spend, 24 months interest-free if you're spending more than $1,500. So get hold of the Labor Day deals at 4065 Florida Boulevard or the corner of Jefferson and Hoosier 2 for the Baton Rouge Mattress Outlet. .653 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Legally Served with attorney Franz Borghardt rolling right along. We do this every Wednesday, and it's always a great discussion. Franz, I want to shift the discussion if we could.
Sure.
So, a lot of times you defend criminals, like actual
People
criminals.
accused of crimes, yes.
Or, I mean, let's not beat around the bush here. Some of them are guilty.
What is a criminal? What is a criminal?
Someone who has committed a crime.
Well, so let me ask you, have you ever gotten a traffic ticket before?
Yeah, I have.
So are you a criminal? You committed a crime?
I mean... Okay.
No, not everybody that does a bad act is a criminal.
Okay.
There are people that do bad acts that are, in fact, criminals. criminals.
Okay, those that we would put behind bars.
Very important distinction, Mr. Haldane.
I mean, I just had to pay the state of North Carolina a couple $100. So
Slow down, man. Slow down.
you know
So,
what?
okay, yes, I defend people accused of crimes, and some of which are in fact criminals.
Now, there are also occasions where you will defend the people who have arrested those people
Oh, yeah.
because they too are
Yeah.
human just like everybody else.
Yes.
Does that get weird?
No. One, I'm a mercenary.
Well, there's that.
Partly dead inside.
Yeah.
No, joking aside, no, I represent folks accused of crimes. We all have constitutional rights to defend ourselves when we're accused of a crime. And look, police officers who get arrested, no different. And in fact, over the years, I've represented a lot of police officers that have been accused of crimes, and I don't mind doing it. It's not. I'm not what you would call a true believer in that sense.
Okay.
It's not us versus them. People are people, man.
Exactly.
So now I've also represented someone accused of being a serial killer and was in fact convicted.
Mm-hmm.
I've represented people who've done terrible, heinous acts and have been convicted, and I've represented people that were factually innocent. So it's of no consequence to me. I'm not drinking that Kool-Aid, so to speak.
Does it play differently though, in a courtroom?
Well, the stakes are higher, and the optics are always scrutinizing more because you have someone who is swearing an oath to uphold the law who's now being accused of breaking the law.
Right.
So it's not. It's certainly not for the faint of heart. It's not for someone who doesn't know what they're doing, because the stakes are higher, and you may have to go the distance on those kind of cases. And by go the distance, I mean try it.
Let me re-ask the question.
Sure.
Has the perception of the police changed the perception inside the courtroom as well?
Yes.
Okay.
I think in Baton Rouge as a community, so there used to be a conversation where if you were trying a case in Orleans and someone said that the cops were lying, there was a belief that the cops might be lying.
Mm-hmm.
Here, we had a more conservative jury pool. Now I believe that has shifted based on how society has shifted, based on how we treat things. Things that I never thought would make national news with law enforcement makes national news now.
Right.
So I think there is a paradigm shift with regard to how society views cops accused of committing crimes. And again, committing crimes is a spectrum. I mean,
No, totally. But at the same time, though, the more attention, the more light is put on it, the more likely the public is to want to convict. Yeah.
Well, the public convicting someone, they do trial by media, by social media.
Yeah, we do.
They get tidbits from Chris Nakamoto, from Kara Chala, and others. I mean, it's not necessarily the same street rules out there that we have in a courtroom. Now, look, popular opinion is popular opinion. You have to deal with it. You can't stick your head in the sand and say it doesn't matter what society thinks with regard to representing someone who's accused of a crime in a courtroom. But in the same breath, we just don't have enough time. But I would say that our need for speed, quoting Top Gun, our need for speed of news and information trumps sometimes accuracy, trumps thoroughness, trumps getting it right. And
yeah,
so,
no, absolutely. And getting it right after the fact really doesn't matter. 'Cause who's paying attention at that point?
Oops.
Yeah, no, that's
my bad.
That is one that will always be a point of contention.
Yeah.
The corrections page.
Because when someone says my bad, it doesn't feel as sincere.
Well, not just that, but the number of people who actually pay attention to the my bad. The number of people who turn to the page for corrections on what was wrong in the previous day's paper. The number of people who will tout and share the link of the correction as quickly as they will share the accusation is down the drain.
Well, and so we don't get outraged over correction.
Right.
Like when people are falsely convicted or exonerated, society doesn't have the same outrage as when you convict the serial killer who kills black folk.
Right.
And there should be an equal outrage because getting it wrong in the justice system should offend us on any level.
I would tend to agree with that.
Are we agreeing?
Yeah.
Did we become best friends?
I kind of knew that was going to happen when we were talking about doing this topic. I was hoping it would go down a road where we could just shout at each other, but there are days where
don't worry.
it's just...
So as I told you...
Don't worry.
So don't worry. I'm a mercenary, and I could go back to being a prosecutor tomorrow.
Okay.
For the right price, I will shake my butt and be a prosecutor tomorrow.
For the right price, you'll dress up like a turkey.
Yeah, I will. Turkey trot. Maybe the Louisiana Marathon, but not the full marathon. Maybe a shorter run. Like you and I can run
The 5K. There's a 5K and a 10K
and then
the day
stop
before the
and
marathon.
drink Gatorade, and then
Oh, you want to sign up for the marathon and just bail midway through?
No. I know my limits, man. At 42 years old, I don't think I'm going to run a marathon. Well, I'm not going to run it with that kind of attitude.
Well, yeah. So I got you by 2 years there, but I could still sign up for a 5K for sure. The marathon this year is going to be a big deal. Getting things
Think
back
it's
in
going to
order.
happen?
Yeah, I
You
do.
think it's going to happen?
Yes, I do. It's outdoors. It's spread out. The start line might be a different thing. Hey, we got CBS World News Roundup coming your way. Appreciate you, Franz.
All right. I highly recommend you utilizing a Tech Gumbo Cup.
What up, Rich? What's up? Sir? Son, you have a safe trip, brother. Hey, Big.
Oh, my God.
B, this didn't age well. You know what I Googled last night? Broom congratulates Joe Biden on being elected president. Coach, this is the letter she sent Joe. Read that paragraph. It didn't age well.
I would like to personally extend my congratulations on your inauguration on January 20th, 2021. This celebration marks a pivotal moment in our nation's history. I am confident that the Biden-Harris administration will unify the American people and begin the work of healing our nation. As leaders in our communities and, of course, our country, I look forward to seeing our shared goals of peace, prosperity, and progress coming to fruition.
Then she gets into the whole.
That's such a sweet sentiment. It's a very sweet sentiment.
Hey, I got an angle for you, and I know what people are going to say. Well, they can't do that because if they do it, I get it. Coach, I've been watching these people get up on these C-17 cargo planes, right? Yeah. Can I see one guy wearing a pair of cut-off jeans and some Crocs in a MAGA shirt or something? All of them are wrapped in bed sheets and they got burkas. Where's that one guy wearing a polo short sleeve and a pair of jeans, bro?
They're evacuating Kabul, not Gainesville.
See Americans. I want to see somebody go Giants. I want to see a broad wearing capri pants with a little hat with a sleeveless top.
She's already here.
Then go over there, get a porta potty, and let's.
They're gonna put that on when they land. They don't put that on when they leave. You think a woman's gonna walk around like that overall?
Top with baggy trousers, dressed like an American. I want to see.
They're not in America.
It's optics. I want to see a guy wearing a pair of jeans and a tank top with Fort Walton.
When we have to evacuate Gainesville, that's exactly what you'll see. That is exactly what you'll see. But they got to dress like that over there. That's why they're bailing, is because that's what's coming.
That really pisses me off.
What?
You go over there, you got to dress like that.
Right.
But they can go to the gym wrapped in an extra large sheet. If we got to go over there and dress like you, then when you get here, dress normal. Go to Sears.
I don't think.
Go to Dillard's.
I don't think this is Sears anymore.
Whatever.
When they land over here.
Right.
When they land over here, then you'll get the apple bottom jeans, the boots with the fur.
The system. I want Chance of USA on the tarmac.
All right.
Come on, Haldane.
Done and done.
Come on, dude.
Can you see? Could you imagine that? Some Daisy Dukes hopping on a plane in Kabul, Afghanistan?
Got to do it.
Absolutely.
Oh, you
That
going to
didn't
go
age
off
well.
on Broom?
Huh?
I know you're not.
Oh, no.
Here's why you need to.
Yeah.
You go to her Facebook page every day, vaccinated, get vaccinated, get vaccinated, get vaccinated. You get the flagship university, and I agree with him. I agree with him. Because I'd rather show proof I don't have it or I got vaccinated than some damn marshal yelling over my shoulder all game long. Put your mask back on. Put your mask back on. Not only that, Broom promotes this whole get vaccinated, but yet LSU, you got to prove you don't have it. Or you got vaccinated.
Southern, you
in
wear
Southern,
a mask.
all you got to do is wear a mask. A little inconsistency here.
7:15.
If we're going to unite as a city, let everybody do it the same damn way.
It's on the rundown. LSU, you got to prove you're vaccinated as a student by September 10th. Southern, it's not until the spring.
That's for students. I'm talking about people going to the games, though.
Yeah.
I get that angle. I'm talking about game day.
I'm saying it's the same either way, Rich. Where's the consistency?
Protect supporters and people in the city. Shouldn't both universities follow the same protocol?
We're shouting at each other saying the same thing.
Governor John Bell's going to come out and chastise Southern?
No.
Hell no. No, they ain't. Why not?
Huh?
Why not?
Because every school's got their protocol. The same way they're not chastising the UL system or BRCC or Delgado.
It's the city of Baton Rouge. We're talking about two University of High Alert.
Uh-huh.
So Broom ought to come out and say, because LSU's going max protect.
Right.
Something's not.
Max
Why is
protect. What, 2 tight ends?
Whatever.
That was a funny joke. You just missed it. You're
Freaking
too
ridiculous.
too angry this morning. You're
I
too
wanna see
angry.
a guy with jeans and flip-flops wearing a T-shirt yelling, "Go Tigers," as he's boarding the C-17. But he's wrapped in freaking bed sheets. Come on, Haldane.
The next time, look, no, I'm going to go to the Old Navy in Kandahar.
When he was younger, he had some fire and vinegar in his ass. Now he's getting older. He's kind of like, we are the world. We are the people. I expect sending Lord the rest of the head on your shoulders, man. You're unbelievable, Haldane.
I love you.
Unbelievable. And look, let me tell you something. This
What?
thing gets in the Gulf Coast this way. I'm not putting up with no sissy crap from you.
As long as
you
you
tub with water. Here you go.
no.
Go
Get
get your can.
Test your batteries. Make sure you're good. Don't light your generator inside. How about that?
I don't know much about your estrogen level.
Jesus Christ.
But it ain't gonna get any better with
We got to get a microphone on that side of the room. Oh, my God. Love him. About 20 years. About 20 years. Thereabouts. Well, no, a little bit short of that. When was 14 years? How long we know each other? 15 years?
It seems like just yesterday. Look. Coach, that is funny as shit. Do what the doctor says. It's 48 seconds long. If you cheat the COVID, it's funny as shit.
Wait, is that in the system?
Huh?
Is that Tate?
No, I got it off of the Spotify.
$7:15, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Hour 2 of Mornings with Brian Haldane coming your way right now. Whew. Thanks again to attorney Franz Borghardt for hopping in for Legally Served. We do that every Wednesday, and it's always a lot of fun. Hey, coming up about 10 minutes from right now, doing something we don't normally do around here. There used to be a thing known as caller-driven radio. It's kind of fallen to the wayside. Social media's pretty much replaced it. If you want to make comments, you don't need to call into a show and wait on hold. But I got to tell you, this vaccination thing in Tiger Stadium, it's kind of hit a trigger here. 7:15, 499-1073. Hit me up next segment. Has the vaccination, I don't want to say mandate. It's not a mandate. You don't have to have a vaccine to get in Tiger Stadium. You can also have a negative COVID test within the last 72 hours. Have the vaccination requirements, will those cause you to skip LSU football games this year? And if so, what are you doing with your tickets? You letting them go? Or you can buy them and resell them on the secondary market? 499-1073. That's coming up in our next segment. I can't read that, Chuck. It just looks like a white piece of paper from here.
Matherns.
Gotcha. Well, why don't I do that now before we dive into top stories and trending?
Well, there you go.
No, because right across the street from Tiger Stadium is Matherns.
Yes.
You want to avoid any kind of mask mandate? Download the Matherns app now. Download the Matherns app now. You can do your grocery shopping before you even leave work, and then pull into the Nicholson Gateway Shopping Center, corner of Nicholson and Skip Burtman Drive, literally across the street from Tiger Stadium. They'll bring them out to you. It is that level of convenience that you can get at actually both locations of Matherns, either downtown on 3rd or Nicholson at Skip Burtman Drive. Full-service grocery store over there, and it's not just for students. I know the location makes you think, hey, it's on LSU. It must be for LSU kids. No, it's for all of us to enjoy, and not just the groceries as well, the sushi bar, the salad bar, the full-service deli counter. They've got it all going on there at Matherns. And, oh, by the way, and Chuck can back me up on this one, the craft beer selection at Matherns is legit.
Yeah, it is.
If you're getting prepped for the weekend, if you're getting prepped for Labor Day weekend, swing by Matherns on Nicholson, ask for Tony, get yourself a recommendation. He is going to set you up the right way. He's never let me down. He won't let you down either. Matherns in the Nicholson Gateway Shopping Center. All right, top stories and trending. Let's hit it. Southern University will require masks at A&W Mumford Stadium. Proof of vaccination for indoor seating. The university put out their official statement. Spokesperson said Tuesday, masks will be required in all the seating areas throughout A&W Mumford Stadium. All indoor areas, including the press box and field house, will require that fans show proof of vaccination. Curious phrasing of fans when they mentioned the press box, because I don't know if that applies to everybody working in the press box as well. The college said the mandate will extend to all events hosted at the stadium. That includes Boosie Bash, which is scheduled for this Saturday. A spokesperson said organizers have already agreed to those restrictions for the event. LSU students must submit proof of vaccination by September 10th. A little more than 2 weeks to go to submit proof that LSU students have followed the university's COVID vaccine mandate. In a letter to students yesterday, the school said they have until September 10th to submit proof they've gotten the shot or to opt out via a waiver form through the Student Health Center. They've got until October 15th to show that they've been fully vaccinated. LSU mandated the vaccine Monday after the FDA fully endorsed the Pfizer vaccine, fully approved the Pfizer vaccine is the right way to say that. All students must submit their information by the deadline. Quote, it's FDA approved now. I think it's a safe option for kids to be able to get it, said freshman Drew Matthew. I don't know who's interviewing freshmen. You're a freshman. You're just happy to be on campus. An arrest warrant was filed Tuesday for a police officer accused of luring a college student to a secluded location during a traffic stop and making several sexual advances towards her. Court records show a warrant was filed for Officer Donald Steele on charges of second-degree kidnapping, malfeasance, and misdemeanor sexual battery. Hey, remember in the last segment we were talking with attorney Franz Borghardt about defending cops? The victim's attorney claims Steele pulled her over along Burbank Drive around 2 a.m., telling her that he could arrest her on suspension of DWI, but wouldn't do so because she's so pretty. Quote, we believe that Officer Steele is innocent of the alleged crimes and that anything that happened between he and the accuser was consensual. We will confront these allegations in a court of law, attorney Franz Borghardt said. Well, we told you about A.W. Mumford Stadium. We told you about LSU on campus. Well, get your phone calls ready now at 499-1073 because we're doing this next segment. LSU announced Tuesday it will require a negative coronavirus test or proof of vaccination to enter Tiger Stadium this season. Fans 12 and older will need to show proof that they've gotten at least one shot of any of the currently available vaccines or show they've tested negative for the virus within 72 hours of entering the stadium. Season ticket holders with questions regarding refund policies need to email tickets@lsu.edu by Friday, August 27th. Louisiana set a new record Tuesday for coronavirus deaths reported within the state in a single day. According to the Louisiana Department of Health, the state reported 139 deaths since Monday, the most it has reported in a single 24-hour period since the start of the pandemic. With the surge Tuesday, Louisiana has now reported more than 12,000 virus-related deaths. Louisiana also reported hospitalizations were up to 2,856, an increase of 18 from the day prior. About 91% of those patients were not fully vaccinated. Health Department also reported 3,814 new cases Tuesday, with a positivity rate of just over 11%. That's a look at your top stories. Here's a look what's trending. Fauci's getting tired. He's ready to call the whole pandemic off, pacing himself out to spring of this year. Does that sound conspiratorial, Chuck? It was supposed to. It was meant to be. It was meant to be leading.
A little bit, maybe.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases and the president's chief medical advisor, says that if enough people are vaccinated against COVID-19, then the pandemic might be under control by spring of 2022. Fauci made the comment during a Monday interview with CNN's Anderson Cooper. He explained that in order for this to happen, the overwhelming majority of the population would need to be vaccinated. We hope we'll be there, he says, but there's no guarantee because it's up to us. As of yesterday, 51.5% of the U.S. is fully vaccinated, according to the CDC. It's top stories and trending. Let's take a break. When we come back, we actually got a lot of audio to play along with this story. But vaccines in Tiger Stadium, is it a deal breaker for you? Let's talk about it next. All right. Kill my mic for a second. 716 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Will vaccines keep you out of Tiger Stadium, or will the vaccine requirements keep you out of Tiger Stadium, or was just the kick in the pants that you needed to get you over the hump? If you want to give us a shout, you can, 499-1073, but we got a lot of ground to cover in this segment. So let's dive right in. LSU's requiring proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test to enter Tiger Stadium for football games this season. We heard from Dr. William Tate earlier in the show. LSU infectious disease specialist Dr. Catherine O'Neill says this added layer of protection means those who are fully vaccinated can feel pretty safe going to the game.
If you are a healthy, vaccinated individual and you are going into an open-air environment in what is still the summertime in Louisiana, this is going to be a relatively safe environment.
O'Neill says those who are elderly or immunocompromised should not go to the game even if vaccinated. She says crowds won't be safe for those individuals until more people are vaccinated. O'Neill says if you're not vaccinated, you can go get one today and have some additional protection entering the stadium. Now, for those who choose not to get vaccinated but are otherwise healthy,
that test puts you into a stadium with a very low likelihood of getting COVID-19, but it is not zero.
No, of course it's not zero. But then again, neither is a vaccination, as we've learned, right? Isn't that why us vaccinated folk have to still wear masks, which a lot of vaccinated folk are still salty about? Unvaccinated individuals must produce a negative PCR test result that was taken within 72 hours of the game. O'Neill says venues that require proof of vaccination or a negative test allow people to get closer to a sense of normalcy while remaining relatively safe.
Adding that layer of testing or vaccination is another way to say, we're going to keep going, and we're going to do this right, but we're not going to stop.
Season ticket holders, like we said in Top Stories and Trending, if you're looking for a refund or you have questions or need further explanation, tickets at lsu.edu. Tickets at lsu.edu. Get your call in by Friday at the very late. Well, after Friday you can't get it in. Now, there are still 2 more weeks until the first home game after that, because we got this weekend is week 0, right? Next weekend, Labor Day weekend, LSU will be at UCLA in Pasadena, California in the Rose Bowl. Then coming back home to take on McNeese State. I got to tell you, it's a weird feeling hearing. So driving in 4 o'clock this morning, driving into work, First Light is on. Okay, great show, actually. Very informative show. First Light airs from 4 to 5 right here on Talk 107.3 FM. They have a sports segment that's at about 18-ish. And LSU was in that sports segment. Normally this time of year, the sports segment is nothing but like running down baseball scores. LSU made the sports segment. This morning they talked about the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the ACC forming their alliance, and then they talked about LSU. I was unaware that LSU was only the third university in the NCAA to do this. Oregon State, and LSU. Looks like the legend of F. King's going to follow us here. Chuck, you're vaccinated, right?
I am.
Do you know anybody that this would be a breaking point for?
Not personally, I don't think. Most of the people that I know are vaccinated already. Mm-hmm. Some of them are season ticket holders, so I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I don't know anyone that's unvaccinated that has season tickets or plans on going to any games this fall where they're like, I'm not good, no, whatever, I'm done with football.
I don't think I know anybody in that regard either. I could tell you I know of 3 people who got vaccinated for Saints games. They were on the fence. They weren't really anti-vax to begin with. Once the mandate came out about Orleans Parish, they went ahead and said, okay, I'm getting it now so I can have be done by kickoff.
Yeah.
So is this going to prove to be a motivator? Like, is this because it's a dangerous thing if it is. It's a dangerous thing if this proves to be a motivator, because it reinforces the idea that all you have to do is take things away from people and you'll get compliance out of them. The beatings will continue till morale improves, is the way that plays out. But there was going to be some level of this simply because, okay, vaccines are out here. You're eligible for them if you're within this category. Now you're eligible for them if you're within a broader category. Now everybody's eligible. The people who lined up then, myself included, believe, and my research went as far as this. I asked my doctor. Imagine that. The people who lined up then to get the shots, did it because they believed it was right. Then you broaden things out and start saying things like, we have gift cards available. So now there's a carrot on a stick. Well, then that stick turns around after the carrot on the stick gets who it's going to get with the shot for $1 million, and then whatever incentives are out there. Then you turn around and turn it from incentive to punishment by saying, now if you're not getting vaccinated, we will take this away from you. We will take this away from you. We will take this away from you. Tiger Stadium, gone. Superdome, gone. Restaurants in New Orleans, gone. Baton Rouge has not shown any sign yet of going to that level, but we don't know if that's the next step.
Do you think if the variant rates weren't as high here in Louisiana, would LSU have made that call, even with FDA approval? If we had low rates, low hospital turnouts, a little bit higher vaccination rates, do you think LSU would have made that call?
So if you have higher vaccination rates, you don't need to make the call.
Yeah.
If you have lower hospitalization rates, you don't have the sense of urgency to make that call. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's 100% based off of where we are right now.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, if 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, we're still at the same number in the hospital, what are we looking at then? Okay, we only got so many people because they believed it was right. We only got so many people because they were bribed, and we only got so many people because they were punished. How do you get the holdouts after that?
Yeah.
Tell you what, you know who doesn't like this? Monroe Republican State Senator Stuart Cathy. Cathy was blasting LSU's decision to require proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test to enter Tiger Stadium this fall. He says this policy is inconvenient for fans.
It's an additional cost incurred to fans when it's already expensive to go watch the Tigers play. But you know what? Hey, sometimes maybe we should do stuff for the fans.
They are doing something for the fans. It shouldn't be overlooked here that there's no capacity restrictions yet. You remember last year, cardboard cutouts all over the place? That was something that wasn't for the fans. This year, you can go to the games. That is for the fans. State health leaders like LSU infectious disease specialist, we had this one for you, a little earlier, Catherine O'Neill celebrated the news. Stuart Cathy, however, calls the policy an overreach with no historical precedent.
We don't require anything else close to this type of mandate with regards to any other vaccinations to come to any sporting event.
Because we've never seen anything like this. Let's go back to the very beginning. This was called a novel coronavirus because it was new. We have not seen a pandemic like this in America in anybody's lifetime. I mean, a lot of people made comparisons to the Spanish flu, but this is a much different world than it was then. This is a much different world than it was when the Spanish flu was out here. What was the capacity in Tiger Stadium when the Spanish flu was out? There was no Tiger Stadium. What was the capacity of the Superdome when the Spanish flu was out? Did you have to wear a mask on an airplane when the Spanish flu was here? There were no airplanes.
There were airplanes then, 1918?
Okay, there were no airports. There was no passenger airplane. There was no Delta or American or United or Southwest or JetBlue. Cathy says the policy is premature. What was the maximum capacity in an elevator during the Spanish flu? How about that? Confined spaces weren't a thing. Were you going to box stores? Were you going to Walmart, Target during the Spanish flu? Or was it like an open-air farmer's market? How many times were you sitting in a lobby? Were you stuck at the DMV during the Spanish flu? It's unprecedented. That's why there's a lot of guesswork along with it. Cathy says the policy is premature. He believes by kickoff against McNeese on September 11th, the COVID situation will be much better.
We're starting to see positive steps taken to combat COVID, and by kickoff in 2 weeks, I think we're going to be in a much better place than we are now.
I actually agree with that part. I have no point of contention with that, but I actually agree with that part. By 3 weeks from now, 2 weeks from this coming Saturday, we will be in a much better spot. Completely believe that. But if you're going to make policy now, don't you have to make it based off of the worst potential case scenario and not the other way around? 2,856 people in the hospital is still a lot for one reason. Meanwhile, and if you were watching the show on YouTube, you heard Condon during our break at the top of the hour. Southern University will require masks for all upcoming events inside their football stadium, including a music festival this weekend headlined by rapper Boosie. A university spokesperson said Tuesday masks will be required in all seating areas throughout A.W. Mumford Stadium, but all indoor areas, including the press box and field house, will require that fans show proof of vaccination. The college said the mandate will extend to all events hosted at the stadium. That includes the Boosie Bash, which is scheduled for this Saturday. A spokesperson said organizers have already agreed to those restrictions for the event. I'm curious as to what the difference is here. Why would you need vaccination or a negative test to get in a Tiger Stadium? But A.W. Mumford is just masking. Now, everybody gets to make up their own mind as to what they're doing. I'm just curious why it's lighter across town than it is here. Similarly, when it comes to students, it's a different story at Southern than it is at LSU. Southern University announced yesterday they're requiring the COVID-19 vaccine for students. However, they have to show proof of vaccination before the spring 2022 pre-registration date on October 25th. It's not that much different. It's a month's difference, basically. You get September 10th to get your first shot at LSU, October 25th. I guess that's not that bad. UL system, similar. You have the opt-outs within it, but there's a similar mandate there as well, or similar requirements there as well. I'm done talking about COVID. No, skip that. We're done talking about. No, we're done talking about COVID. Let's move on. We might get back into it later. We got Congressman Garret Graves coming up next. A lot went down in our nation's capital yesterday. None of it real good. Remember that $1.2 trillion infrastructure deal we've been talking about so much? That's a whole new ball game now. The $3.5 trillion package got itself moved forward. Number of other things happening as well. The headline from Congressman Garret Graves reads, Biden and colleagues use congressional budget tricks to defund Louisiana flood protection and raise gasoline prices. Congressman Graves was hot in committee yesterday and will be when he joins us in just a little bit. Hey, got to tell you about the folks over at Go Slim Nutrition, GEAUXSlimBR.com. Going over there for my weigh-in on Friday, just like I do every Friday. Looking forward to this one. I'm ready for this weigh-in. I like to be able to sit down with Vicky or whichever one of her team members I'm with that day and talk about what I've done right when I've had a really strong week, stuck to the diet. But I also like it when life happens and you're able to work through it. For example, if you go to a shrimp boil over the weekend and have a couple beers along with it, and you could stay on the path with the diet outside of that, with the program outside of that, it's a good thing. That'll be on the table for discussion this week as well when I go over my weigh-in. Well, shrimp boil over the weekend. GEAUXSlimBR.com is the website. 763-9627 is the phone number. Or just swing by and see them. They're on Bluebonnet at Perkins Road for Go Slim Nutrition. All right. What went down at the U.S. Capitol yesterday? We're going to be talking about it in our next segment. What's been going down in Afghanistan? We're going to be talking about that next hour with Paul Viollis, security expert. Viollis. I always mispronounce that. We'll also be talking with Louisiana Swamp Watch in our next hour as well. Plus, the Outside In still coming your way this hour. Chuck P. is going to have This Day in History next hour, and we've got a lot more ground to cover. First, though, we do have to take a break for news here coming up at the bottom of the hour. We start off with CBS before handing things off to our own local news. Ashley Frugier will have traffic after that. Meteorologist Marissa Nuzzo will have our weather forecast after that. Hey, are there some things on the radar to look out for right now in the Atlantic? Is a storm a-brewing? Might have to dive into that before the show's over with as well. It looks like there's a bunch of yellow X's on the map, and one of them has a significant possibility of turning into a storm and heading towards us. We'll break all that down later on. Right now, though, let's get you to CBS News here on Talk 107.3 FM, the new flavor of talk in Baton Rouge. Oh, you didn't have to. I mean, that's fine. Nah, it was worth a shot. It it's a dinosaur of a segment.
Also, like you said, people driving to work. And,
Well, 7:15 is the middle of morning drive. I was. That's why I prepared so much. I didn't think we were going to get any calls. I thought we might get one. I thought we were going to get the crazy guy. Honestly, but you can kill the delay now. You turned it off. Oh. Bypass.
Health officials are also working to boost vaccination numbers in rural areas. In southwest Louisiana, 29% of the population is vaccinated. In central Louisiana, the number is 31%. LSU infectious disease specialist Dr. Catherine O'Neill says many rural communities are disconnected from mainstream messages.
If the community hasn't banded together to fight COVID and they haven't seen a lot of it up until now, if they haven't made that decision for their community, they're still hesitant.
Now that the FDA has given full approval to the Pfizer COVID vaccine, LSU students will have to be vaccinated or tested regularly for COVID.
I think it's the right thing to do because so people are everybody around is maybe like anybody they can partake in the vaccine.
LSU President William Tate says students must get vaccinated.
I had to send Palermo an email yesterday because the 2:30 and 3:30 news didn't play. It was like news from Friday, and I'm like,
How did it revert back that far?
I don't know. I think nothing that's been ingested since Jay Parker signed into this to make it work has been ingested because I looked in the import folder.
Yeah.
And everything that like I've done, I did a bunch of spots on here to ingest Monday night during financial fitness. They're all just sitting there, like they didn't go through.
That's the most deaths reported in a single day. Talk 107.3 Baton Rouge.
So I don't think. And like I went to ingest the news again after I heard the 2:30 spot for 3:30 and listened to it on here, and it was right, and then it played the wrong one, and I just skipped it. So like I think
Is it being ingested in the wrong number?
no,
Interesting.
I think something is blocking it from being ingested. I don't know what Jay Parker did. So I'm just gonna ingest the midday news after the show. I'm gonna go up to the office and do it up there. So are you not doing whole hours anymore? Tell us something about you're just doing segments, or you still doing whole hours? Are you talking about doing?
We were gonna pull the whole hours off of there in order to push the YouTube stuff, but
Yeah.
I don't think we're far enough down the road on YouTube yet.
So you still want to pull hour by hour?
Yes,
of hours?
please.
Okay, and segments separately
Yes.
as usual.
Yeah, interview segments. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
Repairing our roads and bridges, upgrading electrical systems, and increasing access to information systems is good for our families, good for America, and good for our future. Thank you, Senator Cassidy, for leading the way on a real infrastructure plan that rebuilds America and invests in Louisiana. Thank you for voting to invest in us. Learn more at let'sinvestinus.com. Paid for by Citizens for Responsible Energy Solutions.
So the dream was to build your very own law practice. Be your own boss, call all the shots.
Garret.
Seven 38 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Time for DC Current. Time to welcome in Congressman Garret Graves. Congressman Graves, how are you this morning, sir?
Hey, I finally made it home last night, so I'm doing a lot better. We were in D.C. this week, and we're sure if or when we're ever getting home, but finally made it back home late last night or early this morning. So happy about that and doing great. How about you?
Doing all right, except I watched a lot of you in committee. To say you were hot would be an understatement. There's a lot going on that probably got a lot further down the road than it should have.
No doubt about it. Nothing like when Congress comes in and takes your debt limit and raises it from $28 trillion to $45 trillion simply by deeming it. Just they built a way to not have to vote directly on it, and instead just said, okay, now it's $45 trillion. I mean, these are numbers that you really can't even imagine. This is crazy stuff that's going on right now. So, look, as you and I have discussed, all of us want an infrastructure bill. We want to see things like roads and bridges. My gosh, we're so far behind where we need to be. Broadband, restoring our coast, flood control and hurricane protection, the ports, waterways, airports. These are all things that are critical. But to link all of these things together, $3.5 trillion in social welfare expansion, raising our national debt limit to $45 trillion from its current 28. I mean, these are just completely irresponsible actions, and I'll say it again, to link them all together. In fact, the Speaker of the House just yesterday on the floor repeatedly said that she was using leverage of infrastructure to try and force these other things to happen. And just awful politics. If you ever see the definition of pork barrel and some of the awful stories of Washington, D.C., this is going to be right there in the history books.
Yeah, and inflation is about to be a killer, and this whole thing is going to at a certain point you have to start asking, is it real numbers, or because if it is, someone's going to have to pay for it eventually. First of all, let me backtrack just a little bit as a constituent. Watching a lot of what you were doing in committee, you didn't take a just say no approach. You actually went after trying to make sure the right things were covered in the bipartisan package to begin with.
Absolutely. And Brian, just going back to what you and I have talked about, look, there is no question that we need infrastructure investments, that we need better, faster ways to deliver these projects. We can't be in a situation where we get ourselves decades behind where we need to be and then just come in after every hurricane or disaster and dump billions and billions of dollars and get us sort of caught up again. This isn't the way to do it. It's not the way anybody manages their home, their business, their families, nothing. And it's not the way the federal government needs to be operating. The citizens of this country deserve better. And so, I want to be clear that we're all united in that. But it's this way that all of these things are being lumped together and doing these gross expansions of social welfare programs and dumping all this money out there for political purposes, not because it's what's in the best interest of our country. Just really disheartening. And in fact, that's not even strong enough. Just infuriating to sit here and watch this go on and for people to pretend like nothing's happening. I can't decide if they're trying to use all this craziness and failure in Afghanistan to try to slide some of this stuff through whenever all of us are trying to get that debacle fixed or what's going on. But just awful to see it.
It is. All right, so let's do a little bit of a tutorial because this was done via a procedural vote. How is that different from anything else?
Well, gosh, yeah. So what Speaker Pelosi has done is she's using something called the reconciliation process. And so normally in the Senate, you have to have 60 votes in order to get something passed through the Senate. In the case of reconciliation, you can do a simple majority, which means they get, right now, as you know, you have 50 Democrat senators, 50 Republican senators, but then Vice President Kamala Harris breaks the tie on the side of the Democrats. And so this is the one process that they can use to actually force something through without any bipartisan support. And so this is how they passed the $1.9 trillion stimulus package earlier this year, dumping money irresponsibly into different programs, paying people more to work than to not work than work. And so they're using it again now, trying to set up a process whereby they're going to come in and increase the cost of producing domestic energy, which is going to further enhance or benefit folks like Vladimir Putin and China. So what she's done is she has tied all. I mean, it's so intertwined. She's tied all of this to simply a rule. So you have to pass a rule in the House of Representatives before you vote on a bill to describe how that bill is going to be debated. Well, as part of the rule for a bill, she basically said, okay, now we're just going to deem that the reconciliation bill, that this new budget is passed, and we're just going to effectively allow for the debt ceiling to be increased to $45 trillion. $45 trillion just by deeming it, just by saying, by this rule passing the House of Representatives, all of these things just happen. and the reason they've done it is because they know how irresponsible it is. Yeah. So they were trying to find a way to shield the Democrat members from having to take a vote directly on raising the debt limit and spending trillions and trillions of your and my taxpayer dollars.
Is this game over, or can the Senate undo what the Speaker has done?
Well, so the Senate has already passed their $3.5 trillion budget and their debt limit increase. So what happens now is basically this deeming of a budget charges all the various committees to go out there and describe how they're going to spend trillions and trillions of dollars and how they're going to raise taxes and how they're going to carry out other irresponsible spending programs. So now we're going to be spending the next 2 weeks in the various committees. And as you know, I serve on the House Natural Resources Committee, on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. So we're going to be marking up or voting and amending how to spend trillions of dollars in these committees over the next probably about 2 to 3 weeks. And so, of course, the Democrats at this point, Pelosi's telling us, we're not sure what we're going to do, what these bills are going to look like, how exactly we're going to spend money. Meanwhile, memos are being leaked to the press that describes exactly what they want to do. And I'll say it again, it's raising taxes, it's raising fees, it's making U.S. energy production less competitive. After just weeks ago, President Biden was out there begging OPEC, all these Middle Eastern countries like Iran, and including other countries like Russia, to increase their oil and gas production. So oil prices go down and the United States can buy more energy from countries like that. I mean, it's so nonsensical, Brian, watching what's going on right now.
Congressman Garret Graves is our guest. We call it DC Current. We do this every week. Congressman finally back home after just a brutal week in D.C. Congressman, can I shift the focus to Afghanistan for just a minute to get your take there?
Please.
I mean, this is I think you used the word debacle already in this segment. I think we could use it again. The way this is closing out, everyone knew it was going to close out. It's the how that's garnering so much trouble.
Well, Brian, this is what is so frustrating about what's going on right now. You can look at what's happening in the UK. Their parliament got called back to an emergency session. You look what happened in France. They've made this urgent, trying to deal with it. In the United States, what are we doing? We're spending trillions of dollars on social welfare programs. I've had multiple meetings, conference calls, including a classified briefing yesterday with the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State. So poorly handled, but the more I look at this, the more I recognize that this isn't the exception. You're seeing this same emotional act first, think later, plan later sort of policies or implementation across the board. This is the same thing we're seeing in energy and climate, the same thing we're seeing in defunding the police, the same thing we're seeing with border security. I'm very concerned about the direction of the country right now, and I think the lack of experience that this White House is demonstrating. They have got to right this ship. There was a meeting yesterday with all of the G7 countries, some of the other big developed nations around the world, trying to convince President Biden to extend or delay this August 31st deadline. We effectively have terrorists telling us telling the most powerful military in the world when we're going to do things and how we're going to do things, that is putting American lives at risk. And when I say that this is very serious. They are left with hundreds of Black Hawk helicopters, as was said yesterday. Now the Taliban has more of our Black Hawk helicopters than the entire nation of Australia. They have Apaches, they have our drones, they have our MRAFs, all kinds of other advanced equipment that has not widely been reported. And we've given it to them effectively. We have Americans, so they're going to be better at attacking us. They're going to become a greater threat. And we have Americans and other allies that are stuck there right now. This is crazy what's going on right now. This was so irresponsible how it was handled. And now we're allowing terrorists to tell us what to do and how to do it.
And going to have to deal with what is essentially going to be a terrorist government. I don't know how you set the table for that, but I'll just ask the question, how do you set the table for that?
Well, you may have seen that our CIA director did go meet with the leader of the Taliban, which is somewhat remarkable. In any case, we were not briefed on that yet. I'm sure we'll be getting a brief on that soon. But there's obviously some back-channel discussions that are happening right now. And I'll just tell you that Congressman Dan Crenshaw out of Texas yesterday was pretty clear, and he basically told the president that the president needs to make it clear to the Taliban, if they put any American life at risk, any allied life at risk, we will go in and eliminate them. And I think that's got to be crystal clear. We don't need to have the Taliban giving us a red line. We need to be making it crystal clear to terrorists like that what conditions we'll be operating under, and not have them dictate terms to us.
Got 30 seconds left. Are we preparing for an influx of refugees and or asylum seekers?
This is one thing where I think so far we've seen decent action in that the administration has been working with Italy, Spain, Qatar, UAE, and other countries to at least temporarily accept some of these folks. I mean, keep in mind, one, it's a shorter flight to those countries, which is important. It allows us to get those planes turned around faster. So I think some of that quick legwork, I do commend the Biden administration for at least trying to pick up the pieces there as quickly as they can. But as you know, this was a complete failure from the beginning on how they handled Afghanistan.
He is Congressman Garret Graves. We call it DC Current. We do it every week. Congressman, thank you so much.
Thanks, Brian. Take care.
Absolutely. Outside In's next. It's close. Missed by 4 seconds. Cameron says on Facebook, Brian, you know how big a fan I am. The problem I see is that there are about a growing list of 10-plus reasons not to go. Talk about Tiger Stadium. Having to pay for a test or getting a vaccine I don't want as an extremely healthy, conscious person seems like another reason to add. I have a strong suspicion the stadium will be nearly empty for anything other than the biggest 3 conference games, thus further harming LSU, the athletic budget, thus taking away money from LSU, the school. I don't know. Should have called in, man. Who? Oh, I'm not sweating him. He'll come up with another ID for tomorrow. Yeah.
Honey, there's water literally coming down from the ceiling. Who do we call? Give me the number to the plumber. Who's our insurance with?
Okay, settle down. We're not calling anyone until we talk to Advantaclean. When disaster strikes, whether it's water, mold, or fire, don't panic. Call Advantaclean. They'll assist you with reaching out to repairmen and guide you through dealing with the insurance company. Advantaclean, your disaster pros. Go to advantaclean.com and let the pros take control. Take back control of your retirement. Hi, I'm Gregory Rex.
Huh.
Join me at Sullivan Steakhouse on Corporate Boulevard in Baton Rouge for a wine, wisdom, and food experience. Tuesday,
Laura says on Twitter, I'm fully vaccinated, but curious if season ticket holders have options to opt out and get a refund.
talk about strategies to help you live a confident and comfortable retirement. Reserve your seat today.
Saints doing that. At first they said no, but they're doing that now.
At GregoryRex.com or give us a call at 225-522-4282. Reserve your seat today at GregoryRex.com or give us a call at the office 225-522-4282. 225-522-4282. We'll see you there. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management LLC. When you've been in the industry for over 20 years, you learn a few things. One thing, you learn your product inside and out. But you also learn how to ask the right questions and give satisfied
Ha! Another comment on Facebook says they're advertising season ticket sales on social media right now. That's a terrible sign. You're right. You shouldn't be advertising anywhere for season ticket sales. They should just be gone with a waiting list. Oh, I posted the link back. I posted the link to the YouTube back on Facebook. Yes, this actually was on Facebook. You're hot. So cold.
Especially on the interstate here, Prairieville to Highland, just about 5 minutes. Let's take you outside and check on our traffic cameras. A group of them here showing everybody looking pretty good. Of course, as I mentioned, slow travels on I-12 at Range.
See an accident? Reported at WPRZ Traffic on Twitter. This report is brought to you by Shawbills, where you can get up to $170 with the purchase of 4 Toyo passenger light truck tires.
$7:55 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Thanks again to Congressman Garret Graves for hopping on for DC Current. Not a lot of good news to talk about there. I mean, there's a lot going on. But I appreciate his take. I appreciate his outlook. It's going to be weird watching it move forward because that what went down this week was big, to say the least. And I'm not even talking about Afghanistan. I mean, the stuff with the budget. So... And also, it's looking like there are going to be more detrimental outcomes in Louisiana. Like the way Senator Cassidy had it crafted originally and the way that Congressman Graves was fighting for getting it through, Louisiana actually stood to gain a lot more than the way it actually got through. It seems weird that there'd be that much more spending with that much less output, but that's just the way it's going to play out. We got news coming up at the top of the hour. We will talk with James Lee from Louisiana Swamp Watch next hour. We'll also talk with security expert Paul Viollis about the fallout from Afghanistan in our next hour as well. Right now, though, every day we step outside of East Baton Rouge Parish, we check in on a surrounding area. It's a segment called The Outside In. Starting off in Livingston Parish, one armed suspect is in custody. Another remains at large in connection to a string of vehicle burglaries. According to detectives, armed suspects were spotted in North Denham at 2 apartment complexes, Park at Denham Springs and City Heights, and in 2 subdivisions, Easterly Lakes and the Lakes at Belterre, during the early morning hours of August 18th. One suspect, 19-year-old Dwayne L. Dunn, is currently in the Livingston Parish Detention Center, according to booking records. As another, as yet unidentified suspect, is still being sought. Over in East Feliciana Parish, according to the advocates around the Feliciana's column, drive-up vaccinations are coming as soon as today. Per the advocate, nobody will be turned down. This will be as streamlined a process as possible. Participants will park, come inside, fill out the required form, receive their vaccinations, and wait the 15-minute observation period. Going to be at the Slaughter Fire Department on Railroad Avenue today and tomorrow from 10:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Then we'll move over to the Jackson Fire Department on Charter Street Friday and Saturday for those same time windows. An iconic New Orleans eatery, Dookie Chase's Restaurant, might be on its way to earning a spot in the happiest place on earth, according to NOLA.com. Thanks to a partnership between Stella Chase Reese and Disney, Disneyland visitors may one day be able to sample some of Dookie Chase's specialties. The attraction is likely to eventually replace Splash Mountain at both California's Disneyland and Florida's Walt Disney World. Walt Disney has not confirmed whether or not Dookie Chase's will be a part of the new project. It wouldn't be a stretch, though, because there's a lot of New Orleans overriding themes at Disneyland. Closing out in West Baton Rouge Parish, Bruley Middle's Macy Williams has established herself as one of the best young golfers in the world, and she's got the results to prove it. This according to the West Side Journal. Williams, 11 years old, finished tied for 9th in the U.S. Kids World Championship in Pinehurst, North Carolina. This was back at the end of July when she actually got this done. Williams' top 10 finish was out of a field of 150. She qualified for the tournament thanks to a second-place finish at the Copperhead Classic in January in Florida. The season started with 10,000 11-year-olds. The field was cut down from 10,000 to 150, leading up to the World Championships thanks to several qualifying tournaments. So, 9th out of the whole world. The world. And that's The Outside In, presented by Baton Rouge Physical Therapy. Check them out online at brptlake.com, brptlake.com. Do you have that nagging injury that's keeping you from being your best you? Think about physical therapy. Think about brptlake.com. Here comes CBS News.
Protect your retirement. Visit safemoneyplan.net. It's 8 o'clock.
Do you get a traffic or newscast after? Traffic. At 4.
Hey, are you going down to the kitchen?
Yeah, what you need?
Can just take that back? Sorry.
You done with it?
Yeah. It's cold.
Okay.
It's useless to me now. Brr-brr-brr-da-da-da. Ashley Gordon. I don't know. I think you'd manually hit it because you have to manually turn off CBS at 8:04. So, hit when at 8:04 after the spot, kill CBS News. Give it half a second. If it doesn't fire off on its own, fire it off.
Here's my mask in my hand the entire time.
Half page horizontal. All right. Oh, here comes a good question. Going back to the vaccine mandates at LSU. How do they plan to police all this? Talk about slow ticket lines, not to mention the average ticket taker is expected to know the difference between a real and fake vaccine slip or doctor and clinic test letter. It's a pretty good question. Oh, hey, Jake was asking, do you fire off traffic on your own, or is okay?
So for this one, for 8 o'clock news, it does.
That's a good question.
3-minute news and then 1-minute commercial, and it ends left. The commercial ends right at 4. So you just turn off the CBS clock and track. So at 7 o'clock, you'll hear the guy say, "It's 4 minutes past the hour." That's your sign. Turn off that. Yeah, but yeah, you fire off traffic each hour. You have to do that. CBS News at the bottom of each hour. And then this one. And they're all labeled. And then Ramsey here at 6:50, 7:50.
And you said bottom of the hour.
Yes.
She didn't grow up well at all. Good Lord.
And they're labeled like this is hour 1, that's hour 2, this is hour 3, and then all of his segments are labeled as well, including guests like Franz is legally served, Tech Gumbo that comes in on Friday.
I'm also realizing that time underneath there is what is supposed to happen as soon.
Yeah, you have a movie out.
Got it.
Yeah.
805 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP, Hour 3 of Mornings with Brian Haldane coming your way right now. We're going to talk Louisiana Swamp Watch in our next segment. We're going to talk with security expert Paul Viollis before we get out of here this morning as well. Chuck P is going to take us back in time in just a little bit, but first, got to tell you about the folks over at Mooyah Burgers, Fries, and Shakes. You know where to find them. They're on Segan Lane, just north of Industrialplex. They're also on Bluebonnet at Highland on the Town Square Shopping Center. I'll be out there this Saturday noon to 2. Saturday noon to 2 at Mooyah Burgers, Fries, and Shakes. Swing on by, grab yourself a lunch. Have you not yet tried the sweet potato fries dipped in honey? I mean, sweet potato fries were a game changer. Like, regular French fries should have just given up a long time ago. Sweet potato fries are the clear, and decisive winner. Right? They're like mid-90s Tiger Woods sweet potato fries. But you dip them in honey, and now you're talking next level.
Game changer.
Oh, total game changer. Campfire Burger's the burger of the month. S'mores Shake to keep with that campfire theme going on all month long. I've always been a double Diablo guy, although I will say the further I get in with Go Slim, the further I get into the diet, I lose the double on the Diablo. So brutal. It's a beast of a burger. Anything with 2 full, thick Angus beef patties like you get at Mooyah Burgers, Fries, and Shakes is going to be a formidable meal, to say the least. Plus the freshest ingredients, vegetables cut every day. The potato buns baked fresh every day. Mooyah Burgers, Fries, and Shakes. Come on by Saturday noon to 2. I will see you out there. Chuck P. What happened on this day in history?
Well, B, got a few news stories today for this day in history. Going all the way back to 1939, on this day in history, The Wizard of Oz, which eventually becomes one of the most best-loved movies in cinematic history, opens in theaters around the world today. Well, in the United States, really.
So it took less than $3 million to make that movie? And a decade for them to make a profit.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's nuts. It was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Picture, but it lost to Gone with the Wind. It did win Best Song for Judy Garland's Over the Rainbow. And she won a special award that year at the Oscars for Best Juvenile Performer.
Really?
Yeah, which definitely is not a thing.
You know
anymore.
who's never won Best Juvenile Performer?
Juvenile?
That's right.
Amazing. Lou Gehrig died of Lou Gehrig's disease.
That you knew where I was going with that joke. Was it that predictable?
I mean, I kind of figured. Yeah. I know you well enough, Haldane.
Yeah.
This day in history, in 1944, a few years later, after more than 4 years of Nazi occupation, Paris is liberated by the French 2nd Armored Division and the U.S. 4th Infantry. German resistance was light, and General Dietrich von Choltitz, commander of the German garrison, defied an order by Hitler himself to blow up Paris landmarks and burn the city to the ground before its liberation.
Burn it to the ground.
Not happening.
Nope.
And also on this day in history, in 2009, Ted Kennedy, the youngest brother of President John F. Kennedy and a former U.S. Senator from Massachusetts, dies of brain cancer at the age of 77 at his home in Hyannisport, Massachusetts.
On this day in 1960, the AFL began placing players' names on the back of their jerseys.
Oh, okay.
Right? It's no longer about the team, man.
No.
Going to hell in a speedboat.
That's it.
Selfishness, not like back in my day.
No, back in my day. All right, birthdays. We got a ton of birthdays. Top of the list, former Alabama Governor George Wallace was born this day in 1919.
Really?
Yep. And conveniently enough, right after that, game show host Monty Hall, born on this day 1921. Sir Sean Connery, born on this day 1930. Regis Philbin, born this day 1931. Kiss bassist Gene Simmons, born this day 1949. Elvis,
what?
Yeah. Old man. Elvis Costello, who is on our Jada Cody Wall of Fame for Artist of the Month, and my eyes are it's from 2020. I don't know what month, but he's on that list. His birthday today, 1954. Director Tim Burton, born this day, 1958. Billy Ray Cyrus.
I was wondering if you were actually going to acknowledge that.
I'll acknowledge it. Born this day, 1961. Albert Bell, born this day in Shreveport, Louisiana, 1966.
Shout out to LSU Tiger Joey Bell.
Yeah. I wonder why did he go by that?
There's a story there.
Okay. Rachel Ray, born this day, 1968.
Hey now.
Supermodel Claudia Schiffer. Oh, boy, I had a thing for her in the 90s. Good Lord. Born this day, 1970. 7-time, I believe, NBA champion Robert Horry, born this day, 1970.
And he was so pivotal in all 7 of those championships.
Well, I mean, he was clutch in a lot of those. When he was on the Lakers, he
it
destroyed my Sacramento Kings back in the day.
It wasn't about Kobe or Shaq. It was all about Robert Horry and his Alabama rear.
Yeah. And last on the birthday list, Marvin Harrison, born this day, 1972.
Can I add one more?
Sure.
Pitcher Raleigh Fingers. Best mustache in MLB history,
That is
Raleigh
true.
Fingers.
Very true. Moving on to deaths for today.
What's up, mustache?
Truman Capote died on this day in 1984. Art Rooney, former owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers and Pittsburgh Pirates, died on this day in 1988. Aaliyah, R&B singer Aaliyah, killed in a plane crash on this day in 2001.
Really?
Yep. Her music now available on all streaming platforms. Finally. So there you go. The first man to walk on the moon, Neil Armstrong, passed away on this day in 2012.
Let's talk about him yesterday.
Yeah. And John McCain also passed away on this day in 2018.
And you already had Ted Kennedy passing away, right?
Yes. Holidays today, National Banana Split Day.
You're darn right it is.
I'm behind that, 100%.
100%.
I'm not a banana guy, but I like banana splits.
Okay. Pivotal question.
Yes.
Can you turn a banana split into a banana split milkshake? Or is the separation of the ingredients what makes it so special?
I think it's the separation of the ingredients. I mean,
I
you can
agree
make
with
a
you.
milkshake, but
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Do people still do banana splits? It's a lot of effort there.
I'm sure some place, maybe like Baskin Robbins or something like that,
Okay.
or Marble Slab. One of those places might still do that.
Yeah. It's just there's such an investment of time
Yeah.
and effort
You can go to that. What's that place that just opened over on Highland by Blue Bayou? That ice cream place.
The Yard.
The Yard. I mean, they do that, but it's in shake form. They just put all the.
Well, they
stuff
do
on
the
top of
milkshakes.
Yeah.
My milkshake brings out up on the yard.
And the last one for holidays, and have fun with this one, B. National Secondhand Wardrobe Day.
Hand-me-downs day.
Yeah, you could say National Garage Sale Day.
Shout out Macklemore.
Yeah.
Thrift shop day right there.
That's it, and that is your day in history, B.
I greatly appreciate it, as always. We are due up for a break. When we come back, we're going to talk with James Lee about Louisiana Swamp Watch next. Did you text me?
I did, but somebody let me in.
All right, well, all right. Yeah, all good. You good? Yep, how's it going? Going all right. All right, let's get a little bit of structure here on how you want to break this down. We'll start off with just simply what Louisiana Swamp Watch is, and then maybe dive into a couple different things that y'all are working on right now.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Yeah, you did text. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Once we're back in this segment, I kind of...
Yeah, I just never know, like what the delay is when I'm listening, so I was like, I think he might still be on right now. I was like, I just want to make sure that he's not thinking I'm not here yet.
All good.
Well, after an active early morning commute, the drive right now, not that bad at all.
Uh, 8:15, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Hour 3 of Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. So there's a new group out there now. You may or may not have heard of them. They're called Louisiana Swamp Watch, and they are, well, for lack of better word, well, I'll read it right from their website. They are a watchdog group, to say the least, a nonprofit that educates the public on free market policies, serving as a watchdog organization investigating corruption and applying accountability to public officials and organizations. The new executive director of that group, James Lee, joins me now. James, welcome back in, man. How are you?
Good morning, Brian. I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing well. Last time we had you on, you were with a different outfit. This
Yes.
is a similar outfit, but it feels like there's a lot more focus here.
There is a much different focus, and you know, you kind of took the words right out of my mouth. We're a watchdog organization.
I took the words right from your website,
Well, that's
so
true.
like I
My
literally
mouth, my
took them.
website,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But no, one of the things that, you know, I've been involved in public policy in Louisiana for almost 7 years now, and one of the things that's been most frustrating, especially on the free market conservative side, is how much power special interests have in our state over public policy, how much control they have in that building just down the road from here. And, you know, we talked a lot over the last 6 years about draining the swamp in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
And it's very clear that there's an even worse political swamp here in Louisiana, and we're going to be out looking for it.
What's crazy is the further down the chain, the further down the food chain you go, the deeper it gets, or the stickier it gets, however you want to phrase it. There is no bottom rung of this ladder. You would think that lobbying and special interests would be reserved for the big time, you know, but it's there. If there's money to be made, there's going to be a lobbyist making that money.
Absolutely. If there's money to be made, power to be held on to, you know. Some of the things we look at in the state are just the stranglehold that local government has in their legislators. You know, you can't talk to a legislator about any big transformative change without them saying, well, I need to see how my sheriffs feel about it, my DAs, my assessor, my school board. And it keeps us from actually being able to ever move the state forward and past that era of Huey Long populism that's kept us down for so long.
Interesting you led with that. Got to see what my sheriffs think about it, because that was a big bill in this last legislative session, was the move for constitutional carry. This was one that I was raving about on not a daily basis, but at least anytime anytime the bill made a move in the legislature from committee to floor to whatever, I was all over it because, well, it's a big part of our Second Amendment rights. But who got that one shot down? No pun intended. The Sheriff's Association.
Exactly. And, you know, that's something that I think any legislator would tell you. They heard a ton from their voters on that they wanted it. But once again, you saw just because of the power that different special interests have, they were able to shoot down that popular bill.
How did Swamp Watch come to be?
So, you know, it's something that I've talked with some people about for a while, that, you know, we don't really have anything in the state that holds the public interest accountable. We have lots of great policy organizations that work on free market policy issues and advocate for those issues, but we don't really have anybody that's educating the public on why every time we get so close to the finish line on actually something transformative, that it just stops dead in its tracks, and it's always the power that the special interests have. And so some generous people thought it was a great idea to have something that was solely focused on figuring out what are the special interests, where is their funding coming from, and why did they take the policy positions they do, where does it threaten them, and how can we hold them accountable.
Okay, so we have a number of organizations like LAB. I'm a big fan of LABI,
Yep.
Louisiana Association of Business and Industry, and FIB, National Federation for Independent Business. These are two that we have. We have Stephen Wagersback on the show every week. We have Dawn McVeigh on the show regularly as well. These are two organizations that do a great job on the front end. What you're saying, Louisiana Swamp Watch comes in on the back end to come back around and say, how did this break down the way it did, and who were the culprits?
Absolutely. You know, looking at where is the power that's concentrated in the Capitol that stops us from big transformative reforms, and why are they taking the positions they are? You know, one of the things that would surprise a lot of people is how many of these organizations are funded by taxpayer dollars. You don't even realize, like we did a piece, if you go to the website laswampwatch.com, we did a piece on the Louisiana School Boards Association.
I saw that one, yeah.
Yeah, they're a private organization that advocates for the interests of school boards in the state. Well, where do school boards get their funding? From your local tax dollars.
Right.
And then they turn around and fund the LSBA for a taxpayer-funded lobbyist. And once you actually look at some of the policy positions they've taken, they're not advocating for the best interests of our students. They're not advocating for the best interests of parents. They're advocating for what keeps power concentrated in the school boards and in their organization.
Interesting. How did you get on board with this? Like, for those that aren't familiar with it, walk through your background and what brought you up to being on Louisiana Swamp Watch, or being the executive director for LA Swamp Watch.
So I've been with Americans for Prosperity Louisiana for about 7 years now. Was able to do great work there, like you said, on the front end, kind of similar to LABI, NFIB, and just this last couple of legislative sessions where we have this really great legislature. We were all so excited a few years ago about it. Just became really frustrated and started looking and started talking with people about where is everything breaking down? Why do we seem to never be able to get as far as we need to? And so, in talking with people about it, decided to go ahead and step out and launch this new organization and see what we can do with it, and see if we can really serve the public interest by educating people on these organizations, on these policies, and what breaks down in the policy process that keeps us from being able to actually pass anything. Because we know in a few years we're going to have a great opportunity again, and we don't want to squander it. We can't afford to squander it anymore. We've seen the results of not passing good public policy in the state. So
you say in a few years you'll have an opportunity. Actually, there will be tax reform on the ballot this fall. I would hope that would be something that would cross y'all's radar.
Absolutely. You know, we will be looking into some of the opposition on that ballot. That ballot initiative may even have something out next week that we could talk about again and down the line.
Okay.
But yeah, and that's something that I worked a lot on at Americans for Prosperity. And we think it's a great first step, and we're really excited to see that happening. But, you know, if we're ever going to go further than that, we know it's going to be a much bigger fight than it was this year. And this year alone, it was enough of a fight to get it onto the ballot. You know, that came down to the last minutes of the legislative session, because every time we thought it was good and we had the votes, something popped up, somebody called, well, this might cost me a little bit more money, I'm not sure about this. And so we want to really be making sure that we're on top of that and making sure that we're laying good foundations for whether it's tax reform, education reform, criminal justice reform, all of these issues that the conservative right of center free market groups in the state have worked on for so long now.
I'm just kind of putting words in your mouth here, but it feels like every time it looks like there's a free market victory at the Capitol is imminent, it's going to happen, then something pulls the rug out from underneath it. It's y'all's focus is going to be on what pulled the rug.
Absolutely. How do we stop the rug from being pulled out on the front end? And where does the power come from? Why do some of these groups that seem minor have so much influence at the Capitol? And that's what we want to get to the bottom of.
How much help do you have right now?
Right now, it's me and a researcher. So
okay,
yeah. So
work's cut out for you, man.
But look, I'll tell you. If any of your listeners, you can go to laswampwatch.com. We have a tips section on there. If there's corruption or conflicts of interest that you see, that your listeners see, then they want to send them to us and have us spend some time looking into it. We'd always love to help on suggestions for stories.
Now, free market ideas generally, when you throw out the phrase free market, it generally aligns itself with conservative ideals as well. But is there a partisan affiliation with this particular group?
Absolutely not. It's purely educational. We purely want to serve the public interest in the state and make sure that policymakers, citizens, journalists, media, everybody understands where the special interests are drawing their power from, where they're drawing their funding from. Because lots of times I think that's very important for people to know when taxpayer-funded organizations are going out and lobbying for policy positions that don't necessarily serve the public interest.
Right. It's kind of a weird spot, though, because those particular organizations do battle with other organizations that aren't publicly funded, but they're put in the position of they need to put up a fight without the funding to put up a fight, but should it really be my tax dollars that goes into that funding?
Absolutely. You know, that's one of the things that we've always been concerned about is public funding of lobbyists.
Yeah.
Because, again, when you have organizations like, not to pick on them, but the Louisiana School Boards Association, seeing how much money that they take in taxpayer dollars to the tune of around $700,000 every year, and then they turn around and they fund all kinds of travel with it, they fund lobbying, and they lobby on things that don't necessarily have to do with education. Why is an organization that, you know, says it exists to advance education in the state, why are they taking positions on tax policy?
Right.
Why are they fighting centralized sales tax, something that we've fought for years in the state? And so you really start to see it's not necessarily about the kids or the parents, it's about the power.
Give me two or three specific, aside from constitutional carry, give me two or three specific examples from the last legislative session that really got the motor running over at Louisiana Swamp Watch.
Yeah, so one of them I will say was honestly tax reform.
Yeah.
That one, even though it passed,
that was a win,
even though it's on the ballot, it was a hell of a lot more of a fight than it should have been for something that is simple change that had a lot of consensus behind it. But, you know, when you're trying to get a 2/3 vote for something, one or two people peeling off, they can be gone. And there's several more. Another one, and that's some of what we've written about, is just simple transparency in government. I think one thing that we're going to be very active on is talking about what are good government policies from other states that have a much more transparent government than we do.
Yeah.
And one that you see is that you have checkbooks where people can look and see what the expenditures of their tax dollars are. And there was a bill that had a lot of consensus behind it to do that for school boards. Well, Louisiana School Board Association gets involved. Everybody says, oh, all of a sudden transparency is not a good thing.
Right.
And we can't afford to have transparency. And then you also look, even on the criminal justice side, there was a clean slate task force bill by Representative Ted James that had, again, a ton of consensus behind it. There was very little opposition. I think it passed almost unanimously out of the House at one point.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the Louisiana Sheriff's Association comes and says, oh, no, this is dangerous. It's costly. The state police got involved in it as well and killed it at the last minute.
We had Ted James on about that bill while it was making its way, and it looked like such a no-brainer. This looked like a slam dunk. In fact, not only did we have Ted James on about that bill, but there were national think tanks out of Washington, D.C. that were getting that, like, he got their attention unintentionally, like never reached out to him. They just came across this bill and was like, this needs to not only be passed in Louisiana, but replicated everywhere. Like, Ted was a leader on this one from the start. Yeah, his bill is one, and it's a good example of it coming from the opposite side of the aisle. Ted is a Democrat. He's my representative. I voted for him. I will vote for him again. I love the guy. He works his butt off. We're going to disagree all day on policy, but I know where his heart's at. But that being said, this was one where everyone should be in line with this.
There was a ton of consensus. You had faith-based groups behind it. You had conservative organizations behind it. You had liberal organizations behind it. That's the type of bill that should just be a no-brainer and get through the Capitol.
Well, yeah.
And you know, and while the goal at Swamp Watch isn't necessarily advancing any particular legislation, it's 100%. Those are great examples of why we need something like this in the state of Louisiana, to hold these organizations to account and to make sure whenever, you know, something starts going crazy and we're like, why is this all of a sudden running into opposition, there's that resource out there to say, hey, this is like what's happening behind that, and you know, move forward, do the right thing for the state of Louisiana. Don't let that hold you back.
Give me one more before, because I will go off on a soapbox about Ted James's bill. The more I'm thinking about it, the more triggered I'm getting. It's good for the workforce. It puts more people back in the workforce and fewer people on the government dole. I mean, anyway. Give me one more from this session.
So one that I'm particularly bitter about, I don't know if I'm going to do anything about it with Swamp Watch yet. I haven't thought that far ahead yet, but it's one that I worked on a lot when I was with Americans for Prosperity, is a simple bill to remove collaborative practice agreements for nurse practitioners. I know that sounds insane, that was a big fight. All it says is that nurse practitioners, who most of us see, I don't know the last time I've seen a doctor, don't have to sign a forced agreement with a doctor to be available by the phone, and sometimes these cost upwards of $60,000, $70,000. And we've been operating without those in Louisiana since the beginning of COVID. Part of the governor's executive order was suspending collaborative practice agreements.
Mm-hmm.
So Representative Barry Ivy, who's never one to shy away from controversy, brought a bill to permanently get rid of them. You know, we had no issues in the year and a half, almost 2 years now,
right,
that they've been suspended, and they have gone a far way to increasing access to health care. Well, 200 doctors show up to the Capitol one day, and that bill's dead. And I love doctors. I'm not saying anything bad about doctors.
I'm with you. I'm there.
But 200 doctors show up, say, hey, we can't do this because it'll cost us money, and bill's dead. Even though everybody agreed it was the right thing to do.
No, it's just like the clean slate bill, just like Constitution, and it's going to go on and on and on. So tax reform is on your agenda for the fall, obviously.
Education around the opposition to that, yes.
Gotcha. Oh, yes, yeah, of course. And then we will pick back up with the next session as well once it gets here. In the meanwhile, it's laswampwatch.com. laswampwatch.com is the website. James Lee, Executive Director of Louisiana Swamp Watch. Thank you so much, man.
Well, thanks for having me on again.
Always. Appreciate you coming in. Coming up on 8:31 at Talk 107.3 FM, we are due up for a break. When we come back from that break, security expert Paul Viollis is going to join us. He wrote the book Safeguarding America. We've had him on the show a number of times. Let's talk about Afghanistan. Let's talk about the fallout in Afghanistan. Let's talk about what could be coming from a security standpoint, a safety standpoint in our own nation as a result of what's happening halfway around the world. Paul Viollis set to join us next. Before we get you to news, though, one more time, download the all-new Talk 107.3 mobile app presented by Gregory Ricks and Associates. You can listen live. You can listen on demand. You can even set an alarm to wake up with this show. The Talk 107.3 mobile app presented by Gregory Ricks and Associates. Here comes CBS News. All right, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. That was good.
Yeah, no,
we'll do a hit before.
Yeah, the big difference between working for AFP and working here is this is only C3, so when you kept asking about Paul's like education.
Yes. Yeah, no, I know.
I gotta watch the IRS.
So it's going to be tough to position y'all where you're anything but the hatchet man who checks into the basketball game to throw an elbow, gets teed up and thrown right back out again.
Oh yeah.
Like
eventually I know I'm gonna have to start like just carrying like extra license plates around.
Well, but the framing of it is always going to come back around to that.
Yep.
Like,
and that is what it is at the end of the day. I mean, I don't like to think of it that way because I do think it's important, but.
No, it is important. It is important because these are things that derail things that have overwhelming support.
Yeah. And one thing that people have asked me, like they've tried to compare me like similar organizations in other states, and I really do want to be clear. And like this is like part of my vision for it is it's not a negative thing. Like we're not going to go launch personal attacks on individuals.
Right.
We're not trying to go send trackers after Democrat candidates or bad Republican candidates and embarrass them with things taken out of context. It's solely focused on people on individuals or organizations that engage in the public policy process.
With the effort that it took to get centralized sales tax through, because of that insane Sheriff's Association.
Yep. And the school boards and and everybody.
And just to have to make their way around the state going, you're going to make more money this way.
And the fight for that one's not over yet. I expect a big battle in that next year when they go to put the actual statutory language behind it.
Kill the mic real quick. All right, then.
Yeah, so for the 7 o'clock hour tomorrow, I'm going to let him run it.
All right, then.
More hands-on he is.
Yup.
So, when you have those breaks where you actually eat at CBS or the Ramsey Pot, do you go newscast or at the bottom of the hour CBS News, you do that at 7:31, that's a minute, and then you play the hell through Adobe. Traffic's right after. And then coming back after the 6:30, 7:30, and 8:30 break, you play weather. So once the commercials are done, before you bring him back in and play more music, do the weather. Is that order consistent every break? Yes. Yep. So, CBS Pod, newscast, commercials, yeah. Or no, well, traffic. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, we do the traffic first, and then, like, only at the beginning of the show at 6 will you do traffic and weather back to back. So, 6:04, once CBS News kicks off, it's going to automatically start traffic. Then you play weather right after traffic. That's only until 6 o'clock.
Stanley says if someone's taking the Moderna vaccine, can you take the Pfizer booster? I don't think so. If you took the Moderna vaccine, you got to take the Moderna boost. Troy, I don't think the YouTube sound is off. I killed the mics for a second to talk with James about some stuff because I didn't want to impugn anyone. We got to call him. Kill my mic again. 837 Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Hour 3 of Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. So, the fallout from what's going down right now in Afghanistan, how do you break it down? How do you project what's to come? Well, oftentimes we turn to security expert Paul Viollis. He's the author of Safeguarding America. He's getting to be a regular on the program, and he joins us once again. Paul, good morning. Welcome back to Talk 107.3. How are you, sir?
It's outstanding. How you doing, Brian? Always a pleasure to join you.
Always love having you on here. I love the insights you can provide. Last time we had you on, we were talking about Safeguarding America, and lo and behold, a couple of chapters of that book are coming to fruition right in front of us right now.
Unfortunately, my wife said the same thing this morning, Brian. Unfortunately, but true.
So let's break this down. I tell you what, let's break this down in two parts. Let's start to how we got to where we are.
Okay. Well, I think the most important thing, Brian, for all your listeners to understand is that this was not a breakdown from our military. This was a breakdown of our military leadership, which is a big difference.
Yes.
This was also just a calamity in process relative to the decision-making coming out of Washington, D.C., and how this was handled. Now, agreed. We can all say, look, yeah, we probably should have pulled out 19 years ago, but you know what? That is what it is. The way this was organized, and I have spoken, Brian, I have spoken to several of the generals I served with, and they all say the same thing. This is the worst example. Some even said this is almost like Saigon on steroids. That's how bad this is. This is how we got there. As far as poor planning, quintessential example of poor planning, we didn't clear our airfields. We didn't secure our equipment and our weapons. We didn't secure, most importantly, our Americans in country and get them out first. So no question about that. You know, the administration gets a flying F as far as a grade relative to how we got here. But the bigger thing, though, Brian, the bigger thing is, what does this mean to your citizens? What does this mean to the citizens of the United States going forward? Right. And that's the thing we're not yet talking about.
No, exactly, and we will get to that in just in a moment. But it's President Trump, former President Trump, wanted to get us out of Afghanistan as well. It's just that there's, historically speaking, I don't know that there's a right answer in Afghanistan. Like, everybody who's been there has gotten it wrong.
Right, exactly.
So,
think strategic, right? So think, and the best way to look at this, and I say this all the time, my son and I will actually talk about this. Think of playing chess. Now, this is a chessboard. And the globe is a chessboard for the United States military strategy. So where we put our pieces strategically is really important on how we respond, but equally as important and possibly more important, where we can put human assets on the ground to garner intelligence that can allow us to preemptively protect the United States of America. So Afghanistan gives us Afghanistan. It gives us information relative to Iraq, Iran, also Asia. So that's an important piece of the chessboard right there for us to give up from an intelligence standpoint alone. So now with the Taliban back in, we really have limited capabilities of being able to garner the information we need to be aware of the training and the planning that's going to take place with the Taliban, with Al-Qaeda now coming back in full swing. ISIS, Al-Shabaab, and Boko Haram are all converging now on Afghanistan in order to train. So that is the thing we really need to keep focused on, that and that alone.
Okay, through that description, and Paul Viollis, security expert, is our guest. Through that description, though, the way you lay that out, a lot of people are saying that the entire mission in Afghanistan over the last 20 years has been a failure. But the way you lay that out, it has not been a failure. It has been a success every day it's been there, simply because it's held everything else off.
No question. You see, the beauty about military strategy, and this is the thing that it's so important for Americans to get, is that our success in the United States is done by what you don't see, not what you do see. It's the pieces that people that we put on the ground. Now, granted, we gather intelligence, and back in my DOD days, I mean, we were gathering a lot of intelligence by shooting satellites, up in the sky, which is great. But there's nothing like human intelligence. This has been a significant win for the United States, except for the last several weeks. And that's important for us to understand. By losing this piece on the chessboard, we lose a significant presence in the theater, and we lose a bigger presence of intelligence gathering.
Yes, and if you move from chess to checkers, it's like moving your back row so the other team can get kinged after that. I mean,
That's exactly right, Brian. And you know what? That is what we really need to understand. So now let's put the whole thing together. What does this mean? It means that, in essence, the administration, and I'm not a political guy. Look, it is what it is. It's black and white. You know, it's either good or it's bad. What the administration has done here is that we've created, in essence, a Club Med for Islamic radicalists. We've given up a country.
Right.
We've created, and this will go down in history as the most proficient and prolific training ground, recruitment ground, and deployment ground of Islamic radicalists worldwide. Our allies are furious with us. Do not believe, I have guys on the ground right now in Afghanistan and Kabul. Our allies are furious with us. So the other piece about this thing is, think about it. And again, coming to all your listeners, if someone betrays you, how quickly are you to trust them again? And this is the question we need to look internally at, because you've got other countries like Great Britain that's saying, look, you know what? It'll be a cold day in hell the next time that I trust anything you have to say. And we can't afford that as we protect the United States of America.
Trust is very difficult to build and darn near impossible to rebuild. That's
Yes, sir.
100% right. So what are we looking at? What threats are we looking at? What possibilities are in the near future here, in America?
See, the problem with that, Brian, and that again, I wish more people were asking that question, and kudos to you for asking it. The problem is we can't answer that as efficiently and effectively and as timely as we would have before, because we just won't get the intel. Now, we'll get satellite photos. There's no doubt about that. We'll get that. Mm-hmm. They can't hide from that. They're not going to train under the sand. But we're going to lose information relative to timing. Also, when you start combining the massive identity theft that's been going on, the amount of identities that were lost, and that information being sold on the black market for passports being created and used by Islamic radicalists to get into the United States. How many are already here? And now we start talking about the training and deployment, not to mention the recruitment. Think of recruitment here of what we have to be careful of. We don't monitor the internet. We don't monitor social media because we're afraid of violating people's privacy. And this is exactly where Islamic radicalists recruit from. And what is the best tool, Brian? As God is my judge, what is the best tool to recruit with? A win. If you're a winning team, people want to go to you. End of story, right? LSU, man, listen. Who doesn't want to go to LSU? They win. Okay, let's go to LSU. These guys are portraying that they beat the United States. Now, they did not, but they're portraying that. And this is the greatest recruitment tool they get. And in answer to your question, Brian, I truly believe that is going to be the core of our problem.
Well, at the end of any prize fight, the guy left dancing in the ring is the one who's the perceived winner. So if we're out of the ring at that point, then, yeah, that's all who's left, and it's easy to portray it that way. How do you couple the idea of, and we talked with Congressman Graves about this in our last hour, but how do you walk the balance of there possibly being an influx of refugees or people seeking asylum coming from there to escape the Taliban at this point, versus the Taliban looking to infiltrate beyond? There's going to be a very, very need for a very thorough investigation for those looking to come to America moving forward.
And we're not. And I was listening to Jen Psaki yesterday, and I was nauseous at the fact that the amount of lies that come out, and it's insulting. Think about it. Again, going to your listeners, think about it. What is worse than when someone looks you straight in the face and lies to you? Now, we are not doing thorough background checks on people coming into this country. We have no idea if members of the Taliban are posing, and probably are, as refugees to come into this country. But this really comes back to one point, and we need to really, really roll our sleeves up on this. We have tens of thousands of Americans there. This is a tough decision. Let's get Americans home first, and then let's deal with Afghan refugees. But let's get Americans home first, and we're not. And that is something that we really need to be looking at, who needs to be sitting in the Oval after this one.
No, absolutely. And, well, you bring that up. So, and you brought up Saigon earlier. There's a lot of comparisons to Saigon, but I'm looking at the way we have exited Afghanistan, and I'm wondering if there also a comparison to be made to Iran in the late 90s?
Of course.
I mean, late 70s, excuse me?
Yes, of course, Brian. Look at the optics here. We ran out in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what are you doing? The brave men and women of our military, the greatest military on the planet, that died, that came back maimed, that will deal with this war for the rest of their lives, the pain and suffering of their families. Honor them. Honor them. Go out with your head up. Evacuate Americans. Evacuate your bases. Tell the Taliban, we'll be out of here when we're good and ready to be out of here.
Right.
And if you don't like it, we'll make a parking lot out of everywhere you're at. Because that's the strength of the United States military. Instead, we ran out in the middle of the night, and we'll listen to Biden turn around and say, as he chokes over his words, we're relying on the Taliban. You're relying on the most evil group in the world to tell the truth. Brian, my neck's hurting from shaking my head so much.
I hear you. He is Paul Viollis. He's got 4 decades in the business from a security and military law enforcement standpoint. That's why we call on him right here. Paul, we always appreciate the time. We always appreciate the insight, sir. Thank you so much.
Entirely impressive, sir. Have a great day.
You do the same. Coming up on 850 at Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Hey, we're not done yet. We got one more segment to go. We're probably going to revisit a few of the top stories of the morning as we get there, though. Want to remind you one more time about the staycation. It's still available. Go to the website, talk1073.com. Take the quiz. Take the quiz. What's your ideal staycation? And register. Boom. You can get it done at talk1073.com right now. Hey, we've got Your Money Now coming your way. We'll check traffic one more time. Then we're going to close it out next, right here on Talk 107.3. I like having Paul on. Paul doesn't mince words.
He does not.
Wow. Jeez. You know, it's... Ha! Chris Blair, voice of the Tigers, is glad to see Brian Haldane's on Team Sweet Potato Fries. Eric responds to the question about the vaccines keeping you out of Tiger Stadium. He says, the comfort of my recliner keeps me out of Tiger Stadium.
I just want to tailgate. I don't care about the games. I just want to tailgate. 2786.
How real can we get about what's going to go down at Tiger Stadium when this happens? Like, can we be very real about it and say, no one's going to really pay attention? Like, flash a screen grab or flash a picture of a vaccine card. Show them any COVID test.
Yeah, they're not looking at dates. You could have a COVID test from like last year.
Right.
It shows positive. All right.
Well, you got to be 72 hours. This is from 84 hours ago. Bro, no one's going to care.
No.
By the way, it's a very flawed policy to say 72 hours. It's a I don't want to go out salty.
Don't go out salty, Haldane. Fight it.
I have to. I can't fight it.
You could. Feelings to hate.
Hate leads to anger. No. Hey. All right. About to welcome another sponsor to the show.
Oh, who we getting?
I'm not going to talk about it yet. About to welcome them. About to. All right, you want me to fight it? I'll move on. I'll move on. Fine. Fine. I'll move on.
Do not choose violence today.
I never choose violence.
Good.
FBI New Orleans encourages the public to report hate crimes. No, I don't care.
That could get way out of hand.
It's not how hate crimes work. Well, I hate it. What was that from? It's a hate crime. What was that from? Well, I hate it.
Where is that from? Oh, got chill.
Shout out to the estate of the late Dr. Charles M. Smith. $7.8 million gift in support of LSU and Mary Burke Perkins Cancer Center. How about that?
All right.
What you doing on your deathbed, Chuck? You handed over $7.8 million? No.
No. You know what I'm doing on my deathbed?
What?
Dying. That's about it.
Who are
I
you
have
going?
No legacy to give.
Who are you going to bequeath all of your black T-shirts to?
I never get home.
$8:55, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. One segment to go here on Mornings with Brian Haldane. Hey, let's talk for just a second about that nagging injury that's keeping you from physically being your best you. Maybe it's an old sports injury, you know, the old high school days coming back to haunt you type of thing. Maybe you slid into second base in Bogalusa and it never really gave, and now your left knee hurts every day. I'm not saying that does or does not happen to me, but it does.
That's very specific,
right? At Bogalusa.
Yeah.
So it had not only did I hurt my knee, but I had to stink on the way in because of the stupid paper mill.
Yes.
Yep. You know my loathing of this.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. What if you're just hunched over a computer all day long? What if you lift with your back in spite of what your wife is telling you? Lift with your legs, please. Yeah.
No one lifts with their legs.
I know.
Says.
I know. BRPTLake.com is your answer, though. They got 6 locations throughout the greater Baton Rouge area. Yeah, it doesn't have to be recovering from some major injury. This could just be that nagging pain keeping you from being your best you. Baton Rouge Physical Therapy has been around for 58 years. They can sit you down, get to the root of the problem, get you solved, get you back on your way, get you back to being your best you at BRPTLake.com. All right, I tell you what's nagging me right now. I don't want to go out angry.
I told you not
There's
to.
2.5 minutes left in the show, and I don't want to go out angry.
I told you not to.
I don't know if it can be helped, Chuck.
Do it. This
Let me tell you
afternoon.
the problem with a mask mandate.
Okay.
No, we're doing both of these this afternoon.
Okay.
Let me tell you the problem with a mask mandated, not a mask mandate. Let me tell you the problem with a testing mandate. Okay. If you want to get into Tiger Stadium this fall, you either have to be vaccinated or you have to show a negative COVID test from within the last 72 hours. A COVID test is nothing but a snapshot in time. Let's take you back to last Thanksgiving. Yours truly had COVID last Thanksgiving, original version, none of the remixes. But I tested negative a week and a day prior to Thanksgiving. I tested negative the Monday before Thanksgiving. 2 days later, knowing full well I was going to be sharing a Thanksgiving meal with my in-laws who were in their 80s, I said, you know what, Brian? Let's get one more test under the belt. One more test just to be sure. I took that one more test and I popped positive, as did my wife. After back-to-back negative tests, I took a third test 48 hours after my most recent negative test, just to be sure, just so I could 100% slam dunk this thing and move on. And it popped positive. A test is but a snapshot in time. If you take a test on Thursday and you're negative, you take a test on Wednesday and you're negative, I had to do the math in my head on how 72 hours was. You test negative on Wednesday, there is no guarantee that you're negative on Saturday. That being said, yes, it will reduce percentages, but we're back to a numbers game. Have you heard about the Pedal Pub yet, Chuck?
Yes.
Shout out to Terry Jones from The Advocate. Party bikes are coming to downtown Baton Rouge.
It's a big thing in Nashville.
So the only time I've seen this, it's basically a bunch of people are saddled up to a bar,
and they pedal.
But they're a bicycle as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I've seen this on, what's that British comedian? Jack Whitehall, Travels with My Father.
Yeah.
They had this on one episode. Chuck, I think we finally found your CrossFit.
Yes, exactly.
I think we finally found your workout center.
I'm in.
Fitness and IPAs. We're going to talk about it this afternoon when I'm in for JD Cody. Right now, we're done. Fox News Rundown's next.
Protect your retirement. Visit SaveMoneyPlan.net. It's 9 o'clock.
Wow. BRB, Baker, Baton Rouge, 98.1 HD.
Oh, yeah. YouTube. Tomorrow, Patty G is in. Tomorrow, the Chief Operating Officer of Baton Rouge General is coming on, Stephen Mumford. We're going to talk about this monoclonal antibody lab that they're doing. 15 bays, 80 different infusions throughout the day. This is a game changer. So we'll have Stephen Mumford on. We will have Don Capola on for Crime Stoppers and SNL alum Siobhan Fallon. Actually, it's Siobhan Fallon Hogan now. Is it Hogan? Yeah. Will join me tomorrow. So full slate to run down. We will see you then.